Welcome back. We'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Joseph Nguyen, come on up. Is Joseph here? I thought so. Welcome, Joseph. You'll be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vang? Are you? Oh, I'm sorry. It's Mr. Middick. Pardon me.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. Nice job. So I want to introduce you all to Joseph Nguyen from Earl Warren Elementary School. I have a few comments here that I need to make sure I read them because I don't want to mess this up for you. So Joseph Nguyen's a fifth grade scholar at Earl Warren Elementary. His class appointed 6 students as their leadership group, one of which was Joseph. Since then, he's shown exemplary leadership skills. Joseph regularly gives up his recess to assist students with other assignments, helping not only students, but also his teachers. In addition to his giving nature, Joseph's friendly, approachable, humorous, and a well-respected student. Joseph's feats go beyond his good character and extend into his academics. Last year, Joseph earned a perfect score on his 4th grade state math test. I am super impressed because I don't think I could have done that, even on a 4th grade math test. Joseph has gone above and beyond, and we hope to see him continue to achieve greatness. It's with pride and recognition that we recognize Joseph Nguyen as our stellar student. Now, I've got something I'm going to bring down, but if you would like to say anything to this group, you're welcome to do so.
I would like to thank the school board members and my parents and family, and I would like to thank my teacher, Mr. Castro, for nominating me.
Hey, Alex, can we do a photo? There we go. Great. There you go. Congratulations.
Ms. Rosas, you have something to read, please?
Thank you. This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications, and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, March 19th at 9 a.m., Monday, March 20th at 6 p.m., and webcast at sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please fill out a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representative prior to the conclusion of the items presented. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do speak on an item that is on the agenda, we will ask that you please defer your comment until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have an item to add to the consent agenda. We neglected to add a field trip, which we would like to add as item 9.1J, to approve a field trip for students of the JFK School to attend a robotics competition in Boise, Idaho, March 29th to April 2nd. Because of the lateness of us adding this agenda, it requires a 2/3 vote of this board, and immediate action is required. May I have a motion and
I
a...
motion to
and,
add the field trip.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. So add that as item 9.1J. Now, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. Special presentation, we will...
We do have an announcement out of closed session, Mr. President.
My apologies. Announcements of action in closed session.
Yes, by a vote of 6-0 with Second Vice President Wu absent, the board approves special education case numbers OAH 2016-090022 and 2016-100637. That concludes the announcements out of closed session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Behrens. We'll move to the special presentation. Item 7.1, Jesse Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you, Board President Hansen. I have the pleasure tonight of introducing the National Women's History Resolution. And I must say this is an emotional evening for me tonight because I would like to dedicate this resolution to my mother, Amber Ryan, who passed away from terminal cancer about 6 months ago. My mother was the driving force behind my belief that I could affect change on behalf of students and that education would be my path out of poverty. And my mother gave me probably the greatest gift anyone could ever ask for, which was a sense of women's contribution to the world, to history, and to the fabric of society that we have in the United States today. My earliest memory is of my mother taking me to see Geraldine Ferraro speak and telling me that if she could run for vice president, I could be anything I wanted to be in this world. And yet we know that so often women don't see themselves reflected in our history books, do not see themselves lifted up in a way that acknowledges their tremendous contributions. And when women and girls don't see themselves in the books in which they learn, they don't recognize that, in fact, they can strive for so much more than they perhaps would have dreamed of otherwise. And so tonight, I am proud to introduce recognition of National Women's History Month. I'm going to read just an excerpt of that before bringing up an incredible exemplar of serving women and girls in this district. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to our nation and community in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Whereas women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of life of the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home. And whereas women have played a unique role throughout history in providing the majority of volunteer labor force in the nation, and whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation, and whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background served as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change movement, and whereas women have served our country courageously in the military and have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist, emancipation, labor, civil rights, and other movements. And whereas despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in literature, teaching, and often in the study of American history. Therefore, now it be resolved by the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education that March is designated Women's Histories Month. And I would like to call up now Shine to receive this award. Shine is an incredible exemplar of serving women and girls in our community. Shine is a program that builds up the self-esteem of girls in some of our most challenged school sites. And through that building of self-esteem and worth, empowers them to make great contributions in this world. So, Rochelle Dittmore, if you'd like to say a few words before we present
Thank
the
you
award.
so much. And thank you, School Board, for making a way for us to be a voice and to be an advocate for girls in our city. Just this last week, as Shine, we focus on three things: a girl's strength, her worth, and her purpose. And all of those things we believe that are embedded deep in the heart of every girl from every neighborhood, of every color, and every economic background. Just this last week, I had received a phone call from the principal at Pacific Elementary School. A text message came at 10 o'clock at night saying, "Can I call you?" And she said that an hour and a half before Shine, there was a little girl that was on her playground and she was crying. And the school, she was looking for her social worker and couldn't find her, so she attended to the call. And when she went up to the little girl had shared with her that on her way to school that day, she had seen her mother, who was homeless, who was on drugs, and her mother didn't even recognize who she was. And she said, you know, call it karma, call it happenstance, call it whatever you might, but an hour and a half later, she entered Shine. And that day, our speaker shared her story of overcoming homelessness, of overcoming a mother who was addicted to drugs. And she spoke to that little girl. She said, if I could speak to myself when I was 9 years old, this is what I would say. Now a college graduate with a future, with a family, that there's hope for you. And so it is an honor for my team, these women who put in countless hours with young girls. We launch at American Legions next week. So we are seeing girls from 4th grade all the way to seniors in high school and adapting this program. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for believing in girls. Thank you, Jessie Ryan. Your mother is a beautiful woman. And I think about her beauty on display. This is it. So thank you so much.
And as I bring down the resolution and present it to you, I'd like to ask board member Christina Pritchett to join me, since she was also a champion of launching the SHINE program throughout the district.
You take moves. Is that moves? Item 7.2, resolution, pardon me, Mr. Minnick.
Real quick, I just want to mention that while Shine are still here, at the Wilsey Wood Superintendent Search Town Hall meeting, we did a restorative circle with some students beforehand about what we were looking for in our next superintendent. And during the course of that hour we were with them, we had several young women talk at length about the SHINE program and what an influence that's had on them. And they were thanking the school over and over again for making that opportunity available to them. And I wasn't familiar with it before meeting with these young women, and I just really want to thank you for what you're doing, because it's really making a significant impact on a lot of young women. So thank you.
We have one public comment also.
Yes, Mr. Alex Visaya.
Our special leprechaun, please step up to the microphone.
Thank you for amusement. Before I start, please, may I ask all the ladies in this room to please stand up, including girls. Please stand up. Gentlemen, give them a round of applause. Thank you. Now the leprechaun talks. Distinguished Board of Trustees, Cabinet and staff, Board President Hansen, Superintendent Senior Banda. My name is Alex Visaya, Community Advocate, student, and families of our district. Women's historic contribution to our nation and communities are endless. It starts when they bring a child to this world. And it never ceases to end until society ignores their plight. Even though, even though that when a child stumbles and hurt him or herself, the first word out of their mouth is what? Mom. Fast forward when a child first goes to school, and their mom again patiently giving encouragement to that child. And when the school site needs help, it's mom again. And if the child is not feeling well, flu or otherwise, the school asks mom again. So this brings to mind 3 volunteer sites in our district are currently testing a health program that keeps a child on site and later back to the classroom. This helps avoid chronic absenteeism and makes, I'll finish in a minute. I get nervous sometimes. Mom happy to see his or her child learn in a classroom as it should be. This important role is this is important, so let's roll up our sleeves to find a way for Hippo MD to set up a specific elementary site. I saw how it works firsthand. It's amazing. It also is a testimonial because my twice monthly volunteer work with the school attendance review board says it all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Banda.
Thank you. I have the opportunity to be able to present for approval resolution number 2933, which is in support of retaining adult education. Currently, the funding for adult ed is through an adult ed basic grant. The purpose of the resolution, purpose of tonight's resolution is to bring attention to the need to continue to assure sustained funding for adult education, and put confidence back in our ability to provide ongoing programming. Prior to the 2008 recession, and when we had dedicated adult education funding, Sac City operated 5 adult education sites with 11 administrators and served over 7,500 adult students. Currently, we serve 3,200 students at 2 sites with 2 administrators. Programming at Charles A. Jones includes the following: adult basic education, high school equivalency, English as a second language, career technical education programs and medical assisting, vocational nursing, pharmacy technician, optical dispensing, HVAC, Cisco, and court reporting. And then we also have our other site, which is McClaskey, which serves adults with disabilities. So I now would like to read the resolution. I may cut it down because it is really kind of lengthy. Whereas the first recorded adult education class in California was held in the basement of St. Mary's Cathedral in San Francisco in 1856. The class was authorized by the San Francisco Board of Education to teach English to Irish, Italian, and Chinese immigrants. John Sweat, who was the first volunteer teacher for the class, later became state superintendent of public instruction. Whereas adult classes have been called upon on numerous occasions to assist the state as it dealt with significant social, political, and economic issues. Examples included job training programs during the Great Depression, training skilled and underskilled workers during World War II, and preparing millions of residents for citizenship. Whereas adult education in California overcame its biggest challenge as a result of a severe economic crisis facing both the state and the nation in 2008 through 9, funding that was previously reserved to adult education was redistributed to other levels of education in the state, resulting in many adult schools decreasing in size and some actually closing. Whereas Sacramento City Unified School District successfully serves 4,000 students a year in the surrounding communities through its collaboration with community college partners, community-based organizations, and then utilizing whatever funding is available. Whereas Sacramento City Unified provides significant and varied classes, and I've already mentioned the different types of classes that are available. Whereas Sacramento City Unified School District provides a safe environment for its students free of discrimination or bullying regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Sacramento City Unified School District strongly supports supporting adult education as an important part of the Sacramento City Unified School District. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Sacramento City School District strongly urges the Governor of California, Jerry Brown, and the California Department of Ed to provide ongoing, stable support for adult education programs by revising the word grant in adult education block grant to indicate a more consistent, stable, and long-term funding source. So with that, I would like to ask Dr. Susan Gilmore, and also like to have, what did I do with that? Coordinator Hatter to come up and say a few words on behalf of adult education.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Bonda and board members. Fortunately, our district has been very nice to us and hasn't prohibited us from hiring staff using the AEBG money, but other districts have. So it's very important that we step forward, and I do believe it's another first. I think we're the first district to approve this resolution, and it will be forwarded to appropriate people in the legislature, and I really do appreciate your support.
Good evening, and thank you also to the board. My name's Angela Hatter, and I am one of the new hirees out of the AEBG grant. Very excited to be on my 4th month of service with Sacramento City. I've been in adult education for over 20 years, and I've seen the ups and the downs, and we've come out of a pretty down period, and now lots of vibrant things are happening in adult ed, and I'm very excited about being here and all that we can do and bring back that history, because I've heard some wonderful stories about adult education, and I'm excited to be here to bring that back. So thank you also for your support.
Thank you. Yep. Member Vang, item 7.3, resolution 2935.
Awesome. Hello? Okay. So today I have the honor of presenting a resolution in recognition of the life and memory of Cesar Chavez. On March 31st, we will celebrate the birthday and legacy of Cesar Chavez. And as we celebrate his life, in particular this year, I want to highlight the extraordinary and tireless work of champions in our school district who continues to embody Cesar Chavez with the same compassion, spirit, and commitment to immigrant communities and social justice. In the current political landscape now, much as in the time of Cesar Chavez's leadership, has really led many of our families and students in our schools to feel an undue sense of fear. Our board in December did approve the Safe Haven resolution in December. And as a district, we are working hard every day to implement the Safe Haven resolution. We understand as a board that we cannot have a Safe Haven district without supporting our school site, ensuring that the implementation happens. So today, as we celebrate Cesar Chavez, I really just want to highlight the work happening on the ground and what it takes to actually put this into action. At this time, I want to ask Elizabeth Villanueva, Angelica Garcia, and Alvaro to come up. So one of our teachers at Luther Burbank, Elizabeth Villanueva, has really led the effort to create a safe haven school environment in her classroom and at her school for all students. Elizabeth, I really want to thank you for your fearless leadership and your hard work to ensure that our students feel safe coming to Luther Burbank. I also want to acknowledge Angelica, who is a student alumni at Luther Burbank, now college student at Sac State, who actually provides, she actually comes to Luther Burbank and provides the support for our Dreamers in terms of the programming. And so she's really a champion to lead the program. And then last but not least, our on site right now are really the champions and advocates for the Safe Haven resolution and really doing this work. I really want to thank you for your commitment. Oh, and I also see Teresa. She's also one of our parent at Luther Burbank as well. That's really critical in the implementation at Luther Burbank. And so I really want to take this time to acknowledge each and every one of you for the work that you've done. And as we celebrate Cesar Chavez, it's important to really understand how far we've come, but the hard work that we still have ahead. So in recognition of the life and memory of Cesar Chavez, I'm just going to read, not the whole thing because it's a little long, but whereas Cesar Chavez was a heroic figure of the 20th century who led a movement dedicated to improving the lives of farm laborers, whereas Cesar Chavez is a recognized national leader in the fight for civil rights and meaningful social change by peaceful means for Latinos and all who suffer from injustice and discrimination, whereas schools and community leaders today draw upon the example of Cesar Chavez as they coalesce around the cry for protection and leadership being heard throughout the district and nation around immigration concerns. Whereas the annual Cesar Chavez Day of Service, which takes place on March 31st, his birthday, was created for community members to promote service to the communities of California in honor of the life and work of Cesar Chavez. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Education of Sacramento City Unified School District hereby recognizes the many contributions and accomplishments of Cesar Chavez and encourages all school districts to do the same. Be it further resolved that the Board of Education hereby recognizes the dedication and perseverance of many current community organizers tirelessly working to increase self-determination, self-empowerment among immigrant communities throughout our district. Be it finally resolved that the Board of Education of Sacramento City Unified School District encourages students, families, and staff to engage in service to others in remembrance of Cesar Chavez's life, his action, in hopes of building a tolerance and trust with our fellow neighbors and community members during these trying times for many. I would like to take this time to see if you guys have a few words before I present the resolution. Did anybody?
Good evening, members of the board. Well, I want to tell you guys that as a the student from the AB 540 group that Ms. Villanueva has, I feel like that is very useful to us because we feel very outcast as a minority, especially as undocumented, because we feel like that we're alone and stuff. And having a teacher like Ms. Villanueva who supports us and goes out of her way to teach us how to get through life, and that the key of education, I feel like that's very important, and that not only Luther Burbank students should have the opportunity to have that program, but also all the students around the district. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. First of all, thank you, board members. Thank you, Superintendent Banda, for the opportunity and this recognition. Thank you, Board Member Bang, for recognizing the effort, work, and the needs of Dreamers, undocumented, and DACA in our district. And they represent a bigger community. Thank you also for providing transportation to our first college trip with our Dreamers to Sac State and upcoming trip to UC Davis to get them connected to a bigger community and expand their academic resources. I'd like to highlight 5 goals that we have been able to accomplish without resources from the district. With our Dreamers group, we have connected them to the community. They know where to go to. Their families are connected to resources. They have family orientation at Luther Burbank. They have had Know Your Right presentations, having Rhonda Kravitz as an example of the community activist. They have been personally empowered by getting out to the community. And they have been connected to higher education. They have to outreach, working with Sacramento City College, trip to Sac State, getting connected with the Dreamer Center, and the upcoming trip. Now, I do have a very important question to Superintendent Banda. First of all, I'd like to thank you for granting us the opportunity to meet with you 2 months ago to talk about the Resource Center to support our Dreamers, TACA students. As you said, you will follow up. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you, could you tell me, please, what can we expect from that meeting in order to continue the program, and this is a model that is working, and to make it, to have it, for this program to be sustained and to help it grow? Where can we go next?
So you should be hearing back soon. I know I had a conversation with our CBO about providing you requested some funding to be able to pick up where I think the community college is not going to be able to continue to fund that beyond that. So you can expect to have that gap filled so you can continue to run the program the way it is currently.
Is it possible that I can make do a direction? Because and this is in conjunction with Safe Haven as well, Jesse. If it's possible, we could work with the executive committee because I'm always worried about implementation. If we can just do an update on Safe Haven implementation, maybe at our next board meeting, and then maybe a report back on status on where we're heading in terms of the resources, because I would love to make sure that we actually follow through with implementation. Is it possible we could put that on the next committee as an update?
Can I make a request? President Hansen, I actually would like to make a request. In other school districts, when there are priority initiatives, particularly when they are pertaining to issues that are causing unrest in a period of time in a district, there are standing items on board agendas that allow regular updates. I would love it if we continued, given the high priority we've placed on Safe Haven in response to the outcry from our students and families, a standing item for Safe Haven so that we're getting at least on a quarterly basis until we deem it is no longer necessary, a full presentation on our implementation efforts.
Very well. Do you want to present the
Yes.
resolutions? Great.
Okay.
Buenas noches. Muchas gracias, May, por el apoyo.
Hello, and thank you for the support.
Vengo a hablar como padre y como miembro de la comunidad. A mí no me quedó muy claro si van a apoyar o no van a apoyar este programa.
Okay, I'm here to speak as a parent and member of the community, and honestly, I wasn't quite sure if you're going to support or not support this program.
Este programa no solamente ha ayudado a los jóvenes, también nos ha ayudado a los padres a salir adelante, a saber cómo defendernos, a conocer nuestros derechos. Esta maestra ha estado picando piedra desde hace mucho tiempo sola.
This program has not only helped our students, but also has helped the parents to know our rights. And this teacher has really been working hard, really picking at the issues.
Estamos viviendo en una comunidad que es de bajos recursos y por lo tanto tenemos muy poca educación. Siempre se ha dicho que la escuela Luther Burbank tiene la educación más baja, pero también si van y la visitan, van a ver ustedes qué tipo por empezar, de computadoras tenemos.
The community at Luther Burbank is a low-income community, and the education level is kind of low. It's always been said that Luther Burbank has one of the lowest education levels. If you come and visit, just come and see what kind of computers we have.
Aún sin embargo, con tan pocos recursos, ustedes mismos han visto que han salido grandes líderes de aquí.
But even with our low resources, you know that we have had some great leaders come out of this school.
Por eso queremos, yo como padre y como miembro de la comunidad, les pido que por favor apoyen ese tipo de programas, apoyen ese tipo de maestras, porque es lo que necesitamos.
So as a parent and a community member, I ask you to please support this kind of program and please support this kind of teacher.
No sé qué es lo que vayan a hacer, no sé cuándo nos vayan a dar una respuesta, pero a mí sí me gustaría oír una respuesta concreta, no que me digan que de aquí a 3 meses, porque de aquí a 3 meses pueden cambiar muchas cosas.
Okay, so I'd really like to know what you're going to do. I'd really like a more concrete response, not that we'll hear back in about 3 months, because a lot can happen by then.
Ok, ya están los fondos para seguir con el programa. Lo único que falta es avisar, a mandar un email o algo para confirmar que van a recibir los fondos. Pero ya fue una discusión donde decidimos que vamos a seguir dándole los fondos para que siga con el proyecto.
Podemos venir y continuar con esto, podemos seguir, antes de irse usted, ¿puede dejar hecho eso?
Oh, sí, ya estamos listos.
She just asked, before you leave, can we be sure that this is set in place? And he said yes.
So my response was that the funds have been set aside, and it's just a matter of sending a confirmation email with, I don't know if there's a budget code that gets attached to that, Gerardo. I'm not the budget person.
Yes, we had allocated the funds to the school, to Luther Burbank, so they are in the school. We did that yesterday. They're in their budget. Just going to send an email, and they're ready to be used. Están listos, ya están en el presupuesto de la escuela, entonces ya los pueden usar, con el proceso que se usa siempre para cualquier cosa. Fueron alocados ayer en la tarde, nomás tengo que avisar.
Ok, muchísimas gracias.
Y
Gracias,
si tiene una
superintendente.
pregunta, yo le puedo ayudar también.
Gracias, May.
Okay, now I need a motion to approve the 3 resolutions. I have a motion and a second to support the 3 resolutions. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. All are approved. Now we will move to public comment. Mr. Barrios, and call up our first contestants.
We do have one on item 7.3, Mr. Visaya.
Oh.
Again, did you still?
My apologies. Messiah, our lucky leprechaun. One more time.
I'm taking this opportunity because of our diversified students in the district. Most of them are Latinos, and I want to say this comment. Distinguished Board of Trustees, Cabinet staff, Ms. Superintendent, President Board, President Hansen, Superintendent Banda. My name is Alex Visaya again. While we recognize and honor the life of the late Cesar Chavez, who led a movement dedicated to improving of many thousands of farm laborer, let's try our best to recruit and hire a superintendent who is willing to sign the dotted lines for 7 years maximum if from the Sacramento region, or 10 years maximum from out of state or within California, but not the Sacramento area. We are a unique district that meets all 8 priorities, LCAF, LCAP priorities. And if it happens before June 30th, this is the first time in this district that we do not put in an interim superintendent. We want him or her to focus on just 4 of the 8 priorities to come close of eliminating the achievement gap. And we should start with class size reduction, K3 already in place. Like the Waldorf method of Alice Burney, we want the same teacher, these kids stay until they successfully read in the 3rd grade. This is a bonding, and it also learn to read and read to learn once a child enters the 4th grade. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May go back to Mr. Barrios.
We have 26 public comments. I'll call them up in 3s, if that's okay. And then when you hear your name, stand in line. Our first 3 are Guadalupe Garcia, Arthur Alleman, and Chris Mateo.
I just really want to quickly add before we have our first speaker come up that I know a number of folks in the audience are here to speak to our negotiations and be able to express their viewpoints. I just want to inform the group here and those watching at home that we have an update on negotiations on our district website. If you go there, there's a link. And in there, you will also see a copy of the latest offer that we have on the table working through the negotiations process with our labor partners.
Good evening, board members, parents, Superintendent Banda. I also want to acknowledge our great teachers that are in the room. My name is Guadalupe Garcia, and I am a parent and community member, and I am an employee of this district. And I have seen firsthand the power of this service for our community. The access to free medical care and my children's schools. This allows me the freedom as a parent to work and to help provide for my family without the worry that I have to drive them to the emergency room in the middle of the day or to get them there too late if they have an accident. If my child gets seriously hurt at school, the school doctor is the first one to know and to help. He or she calls the hospital ahead of time to make sure that someone will see my child immediately. The school doctor already has the vitals and the history to send. I finally have the medical history of my child through discharge papers, better than the ones that I get from my own hospital. It's such a relief to me to have this service, even though I am not an active parent and know my way around the system more than most of our parents. Most parents are afraid to speak up for the lack of being or possibly deported or not being understood. Please support this, and finally I can say that there's something good to uplift in our community for the betterment and well-being of our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Banda, President Hanson, and board members. It's been a while since I've been up here. I just want to ditto everything she said. And actually tonight, I just wanted to say that I'm support. I also want to acknowledge our teachers for their hard work and parents. But tonight, I really want to advocate for this HIPPO MD program that has come to NJB. These services provide immediate services from a doctor on the school site. And I like Mrs. Garcia was saying, you know, right now the climate of the nation is at a state where undocumented families are really struggling with this fear of taking a trip to the hospital or taking a trip to see the doctor. And with this program, being on site, on the school sites, you know, it gives them an opportunity. You know, they don't have to leave the campus or they don't have to go pick up their kids and take them and drive them. They can just go to the school site or the doctor provides all the information they need. So, you know, I'm asking that you provide funding for this year, not wait until next year. Provide the funding for this year so this program can continue as it is. Okay, and that's, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, board members. My name is Chris Mateo, and I am here tonight speaking on behalf of California Assembly Member Jim Cooper, who is in full support of HIPPO MD. Last August, Assemblymember Cooper hosted the Back to School Health and Wellness Fair at the Pinnell Community Center. This event was created to give away free school supplies and backpacks to students of South Sacramento and to provide free resources to their families. During the planning of this event, when our office sought medical partners to offer free services to this underserved population, HIPPO MD immediately answered the call. 48 children were provided free health care by an emergency room doctor, live and on site. Vitals were taken, eyes, ears, and noses were checked. Families talked to the doctor regarding medical concerns for their children. Then, when all the other vendors had packed up and left at the end of the event, HIPPO MD was still serving children until there were no more standing in line to be seen. Having this type of community partner willing to devote a full Saturday in addition to being a free service to students every single day at John Still to the same population of our grossly underserved community showed us their level of commitment and willingness to put into action their promise of providing health and well-being to our students, to walk the walk while talking the talk. Again, on behalf of Assemblymember Cooper, thank you, Sacramento City Unified School District, for initiating such a partnership through which our students, our families, and our communities will continue to get the medical care and attention they deserve. Thank you.
Our next three are Nikki Malevsky, David Fisher, and Shannon Just.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Nikki Malevsky. I'm the proud president of the Sacramento City Teachers Association. While I'm excited to be standing in front of you today following a picket with over 1,000 members of SCTA, at the same time, I am extremely disappointed that we have to be here tonight. For the first time this century, the district's enrollment is growing, and the district is in the best financial position in its history. Revenues have increased more than 41% in the last 4 years, while reserves have soared more than 404%. The district now has over $98 million in reserves and looks like it will end 2016-17 with more than $100 million in reserves. As Scott Chase from Mark Twain and one of our members of the bargaining team has put it, that's enough money to fix the Oroville Dam. Despite this tremendous opportunity, this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make Sac City the destination district for California, the district has proved itself unwilling to take the measures it needs to put students first, as the district slogan says. All the while, the district seems to be able to find the resources, as it has over the last 2 years, for such things as adding a chief strategy officer, adding an additional area superintendent, adding a new assistant superintendent of labor relations, a new director for community relations out of the superintendent's office, a new special assistant to the board, a new director of teacher and leadership development, a newly created chief human resource officer, a new assistant superintendent of equity, new coordinators in the academic office, the child development, and the special ed department, a new employee relations director, and many others. The district even found the money to pay to fix the transmission on the superintendent's car. But to date, the district has been unwilling to spend the additional resources on the type of support our students need, or to make the kind of improvements that will enable our district to recruit and retain staff that reflect the diversity of our students. Today, for example, Sac City currently has 53 vacancies, while Elk Grove and San Juan both have fewer than 10. To add insult to injury, the district has been willing to spend more on an outside attorney to stonewall bargaining than it has on our students. Since bargaining began in October, the district is spending approximately $75,000 every 2 months on their outside attorney for bargaining, more than the average salary of a full-time teacher. Our proposals to make Sac City the destination district have been rejected by your bargaining team out of hand. Reducing class sizes has been rejected. Increasing nurses, psychologists, and other support staff? Rejected. Improving special education and creating early intervention? Rejected. Creating a bottom-up restorative justice program? Rejected. Teacher-driven professional development? Rejected. A committee to increase enrollment and improve operational competency in the district? Rejected. Giving all students in the district the opportunity to take arts and music? Rejected. Expanding the parent-teacher home visit project? Rejected. Creating a more competitive salary schedule for educators that will enable the district to recruit and retain credentialed staff? Rejected. And the icing on the cake? Expanding prep time for teachers so that all students, including special ed students, could get physical education. If this board is serious that it shares our commitment and vision to make Sac City the destination district for California, putting students first means more than just a slogan. This is our collective once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a real difference. Are you up for the task?
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Good evening. Oh, there it is. My name is David Fisher, First Vice President of SCTA, Bargaining Chair for SCTA, and proud parent of 2 children in the Sacramento City Unified School District. So I'm going to start with a little bit of history. Between 2010 and 2014, educators in Sac City gave economic concessions in order to continue the best services possible, totaling well over $75 million over those 4 years. When times were hard, educators were willing to make sacrifices to ensure that our district did its best to educate children. But as you well know, we're no longer in a recession, quite the opposite. In fact, the district is in the best financial position it has ever been in its history, exceeding its strong financial position of 2007-8 preceding the Great Recession. We, the collective we, here in Sac City, have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make Sac City the destination district for California. Do I move it here? Can you move from there? Oh. There you go. Thanks. Okay, so the first graph demonstrates that since 2012 and 2013, the district's general fund revenues have increased by over $157 million, growing from $379 million to over $537 million, or an increase of 41%. It's also worth noting, the blue line, the district dramatically underestimated its revenue by an average of almost 10% each year. Most significantly, last year when it undercalculated revenue by 15%. That's about almost $71 million undercalculated. What this means is that you're making decisions with inaccurate information that end up shortchanging our students, even if it's not your intent. The district's strong financial position is further highlighted when looking at ongoing state revenues. The district often attempts to diminish its strong financial position by trying to argue that many of the resources are one-time dollars. So let's talk about ongoing state revenue. Since 2012-13, the district's ongoing state revenue have increased by 33%, or $102 million per year, ongoing every year. During the same time period, 2012-13 to 2015-16, the district general fund balance, the reserve, soared from about $19 million to almost $98 million. That's an increase of $78 million, or over 400%. The blue line represents your projections, and the red line, the actual fund balance. Let's look directly at the district's own 2015-16 audited financial statement submitted to the state. You see the pattern, same pattern. In the original budget, on the green, you budgeted to run a deficit for the following year. You actually ran a $53 million surplus. That's in the blue, leading to the $98 million reserve fund balance you see in the red. Furthermore, despite the district's repeated and inaccurate claims that enrollment is declining, in fact, the district enrollment is increasing, leading to additional revenue. I saw this slide's going to come later in a present presentation that's in your packet. It's almost the same slide. In addition to that, several additional housing projects are in the area in the works, and if you would just join with us to help make Sac City the destination district, these numbers would improve even more. In other words, rather than spending its revenues to make immediate improvements for students who are in the classroom today, the district appears to be more interested in spending valuable education dollars by growing its reserve by over 400%, while also increasing the number of district administrators by 33% in the last 3 years alone. At the same time, the district is underspending on certificated staff. According to the district, there are still 53 unfilled vacancies, a detriment to, about 1,500 students right now today. The district estimates that this year it will underspend on certificated salaries by at least $6.9 million because of these vacancies. In 2013-14, the district underspent by $1.8 million on salaries. In 14-15, the district underspent by $2.6 million on certificated salaries. In 2015-16, the district underspent by $3.2 million on certificated salaries. The total underspent on certificated salaries from 2013-14 to the present is $14,617,367. Again, what happens to those? They don't get spent on the kids, and that goes to your reserve. In addition, the district appears to be overcalculating the cost of health benefits. In its proposal at the bargaining table on February 15, 2017, the district established that it had budgeted $26,847 per employee for medical, dental, vision, and life. Like a lot of aspects of the budgeting process for the district, those are wildly inaccurate numbers. In fact, the annual cost per employee for medical, dental, vision, based on the district's most recently provided actual costs of December 2016, was actually $20,346, representing a decrease from the previous year cost per employee of about $395, or almost 2%. So what does that mean? That means that the district has overestimated the cost of benefits going forward by $6,500 per employee, or $14,300,000. That's the money that should be spent on the students today, and it keeps ending up in your reserve. This combination of increased revenues, a soaring reserve, annual underspending on certificated salaries, the district's inability to project a reliable budget, and the district's willingness to spend valuable taxpayer dollars on questionable expenditures, including ill-defined administrative positions at the Cerna Center, make it clear that the district indeed has the financial resources to join with us to make Sac City the destination district for California. The district appears only to be lacking the vision and commitment to be in alignment with the district's own slogan, to truly put Sac City students first. Thank you.
I guess I just have one quick question. Maybe if SCOE could review the numbers, because the Sacramento County Office of Education reviews our numbers and they validated our numbers. So maybe you can share with them also, and that can be useful for a comparison. So thank you.
All right, well, that's hard to follow. Okay, good evening. My name is Shannon Just, and I teach science at Luther Burbank. And I've taught in this district for 26 years, first at Johnson for 20 years and then at Burbank for the last 6. For the first time in my career, I have been on the SCTA bargaining team. My involvement has been an eye-opening experience, and I wish I could say a positive one. Beginning first with the district's effort to eliminate 25% of our bargaining unit, the substitutes, before bargaining even began. I was also shocked when the district's attorney objected to the size of our bargaining team, challenging my right and the right of all of our SCTA members to be involved in the bargaining process. Since then, things have only gotten worse. The district has made numerous proposals that its attorney either can't or won't explain. On numerous occasions, when asked why the district is making a specific proposal, his response has been, and I quote, "I don't know." The district's proposals have been riddled with errors. On at least twice, the district has wasted over an hour of our time trying to explain its proposals on transfers, only then to realize it had the wrong proposal and having to pull it back. Okay? It happened twice on the same proposal on different bargaining meetings. We deserve better. Just as bad is when we asked the district to explain why it was rejecting our proposal, and again, they can't or won't provide a response. Here's just one example. On our first day of bargaining, October 11th, we proposed the creation of a joint SCTA SCUSD committee to make Sac City the destination district. The committee would be formed to make recommendations to you, the Board of Education, on the following issues: enrollment trends in the district, the financial and educational impact of independent charter schools, improving the district's operational competency, including the enrollment process, the location and physical limitations of school sites, course offerings, and other matters that may affect enrollment trends and affect our ability to keep and recruit students and teachers. Since the district's bargaining team is negotiating on your behalf, can you please explain why the district has been rejecting this proposal? Thank you.
Our next speakers, please.
Next three speakers, Cindy Stewart, Scott Chase, and Monica Harvey.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, come on up.
Scott Chase.
Hello, my name is Scott Chase. I'm a teacher in the district. I've been here for 28 years. Prior to that, I was a student. I went to Bancroft, Kit Carson, and Sac High. So I've had about 41 years in the district. And just like many of the members on the bargaining team, this was my very first time to be on bargaining. And I had served as a site rep for about 20 years. So I'd like to give you a little report. And before I start the report, I'm going to start off by saying that budgets are a reflection of priorities. We've met 17 times for a total of over 60 hours. So this is pretty much what happens. A teacher works all day. Our meetings start at 4, and it's an early evening if it ends at 8. And basically, here's what's happened in those 17 meetings. We've learned that the district's revenues have blossomed 41% in the last 5 years. They've gone from an operating budget of $379 million to over $537 million. Just put a little perspective. Each student during the Great Recession brought in about $6,800. Next year, the projection is $11,400. In that time period with the district's increased revenues, the savings, that's pretty much what the general fund reserve is. It's a savings. The savings account has exploded to nearly $100 million. So during this time, I've been to the land of Oz. I've seen behind the curtain. And I can tell you what the district has spent its money on. The first thing they spent their money on, they spent $285,000 on an attorney. And the second thing they spent their money on was that they hired 33% more district administrators. And the last thing they've done is they've put away millions of dollars. Every single proposal that we've requested, lower class sizes, art and music instruction, counselors, librarians, nurses, one after another, just shot down, no. And it got to a point where there was actually one I thought was going to make it. And that was that special ed students should get PE. And that was rejected. And so I think some of the things that maybe the board has underestimated is our commitment to change this district. I'm telling you right now, I work with dedicated people that are not in it for the money. Just to put a little, since we're talking about money, let's put it in perspective. Teachers in this district, to top out, you work 26 years. And there's 5 columns. So if you add it up, there's 130 cells on our salary schedule. Elk Grove outpays us in all but 10 cells. If I had taught for 30 years in Elk Grove with my same level of education, I would have made $256,000 more. What you don't understand is you're creating your own problems. You have a salary schedule that's not competitive. That's why you have 53 vacancies. And your answer to solve this is not an answer. It's a complete Band-Aid. And let me tell you what the answer is. The proposal is that science and special ed teachers and math teachers would get a $10,000 signing bonus. It would be delivered over a course of 4 years. But once those 4 years are up, those teachers are going to leave. This district serves 48,000 students in nearly 80 campuses. We have 68% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. 21% of our students are limited English speaking. And at a time of abundance, this is what this district is offering. Absolutely nothing in the way of student services. Nothing. No changes at all. Nothing. What the district is really offering is a 2% salary rate increase for teachers for the next 3 years. It won't even keep up with inflation. This people behind us, what they want you to do, I'm just going to tell you what they want you to do. They want you to use your money wisely. And that starts with lowering class sizes. That starts with art and music instruction for all students, kindergarten through 12th grade. We have nurses have spoke.
We have a lot of folks who want to speak. I appreciate your comments, but if you could wrap it up, I'd appreciate it. Well, there's 25 more folks who are speaking, and we're happy to be here all night long. We're used to it, but I'm just asking for...
Raise your hand if you want me to speak. We have 23 nurses right now that serve all of our students. And these nurses are so impacted that a nurse spoke at one of our bargaining sessions. She works at 8 campuses. And she said, I absolutely have no time for any medical needs of any student at all. What I do all the time is I do special ed testing. Our students in this district, we have 68% of the students in this district are people of color. We can do a lot better than what we're offering. Class sizes are too large. We can offer art and music instruction. You can hire nurses and psychologists. You can end some of this unnecessary testing. We can make this district so much better, and we can work together to do this. We can create a win-win situation. I'm not trying to focus on one person, but I think it illustrates my point. Our superintendent with his salary and his benefits earns $338,000. Our governor of California has a salary of $173,000. And the president of the United States has a salary of $400,000. It's time that we truly put students first. It's time that we live up to the slogan. I absolutely love my job. I think I'm one of the luckiest people on the planet. But I have to admit, it's been really depressing, to be honest, to go through 17 bargaining sessions in here. No, no, no. And then when I look at some of these numbers, I'm a numbers guy. And, you know, the district says...
May I ask you to wrap up, please?
I will wrap up.
Thank you.
The district says that they're spending $26,847 per employee for benefits, when the actual number is $23,346. It adds up to $14,300,000. We want you to use your money wisely. We want you to spend your money on students. We don't want it to be saved for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Monica Harvey.
Do I have to turn this on? There's some help.
Will you turn on the slide projector, please?
I just want the document camera. Good evening. My name is Monica Harvey. I'm a language, speech, and hearing specialist. I have worked for Sacramento City Unified for 23 years. For years, there have been concerns raised about Appendix D in our contract. We have taken those concerns to heart, and this year came forward with a comprehensive proposal to significantly improve the district's special ed program. We have asked to see the result of the preliminary audit and been refused. We have proposed implementing an early academic intervention program. The district has rejected that. We have proposed replacing Appendix D with language that includes implementation of a robust and evidence-based multi-tiered response to intervention system. The district has rejected that. We have proposed the creation of a district-wide SCTA and SCUSD ongoing special ed committee. The district has rejected that. We have proposed site-based special education committees at inclusionary practice and RSP schools. The district has rejected that. We have proposed that full inclusion practice and RSP programs be provided appropriate instructional material, equitable class sizes to address special needs students, and appropriate professional learning. The district has rejected that too. We have proposed that educators be provided the opportunity to fully participate in IEP meetings. The district has rejected that too. We have proposed that special needs students with specific health care needs should receive that care from a school nurse, and the district has rejected that too. Most notably, even though the district has conceded that it is out of compliance with Ed Code regarding the caseload size of language, speech, and hearing specialists, it won't agree to abide by Ed Code until next year. And finally, rather than agreeing to reduce caseloads for special education teachers, the district is actually proposing to increase the caseload for mild to moderate SDC teachers. How does the district expect to become the destination district when it is not prepared to make significant improvements that we all know are needed in special education? Thank you.
Thank you. The next three speakers, please.
The next speakers is Geraldine Price, Laura Shirley, Melissa Reynoso.
Come on down. Do you want to, what's the first?
Geraldine Price, Laura Shirley, Melissa Reynoso.
Thank you. Yeah, either any order is fine unless there's something special.
Number 4 is Robert Peters, so that way in the line.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Melissa Reynoso. I am a 6th grade teacher at Hubert Bancroft Elementary. And in the beginning of this year, I was slated to have about 26 kids in my classroom, and I had 2 teaching partners who likewise had about 26, 27 students in their classroom, which by national standards is over-enrolled. Our national standard is currently 21.7 kids per class. So even at 27 kids, I was already over-enrolled by national standards. Then our 5th grade classrooms had around 26 kids each. A week before school started, we eliminated one of those classes in order to compact and throw all these kids into 4 classes and create a split, which is, the district has been said that we want to avoid making splits, but it has been my experience that this is a very common policy and practice. With just a week before school starting, we now had to move one teacher to a kindergarten class. I had 33 kids, my partner has 33 kids, they created a split. We had all of these kids in our class. We had to combine behavior problems into one class. We had some kids had to, if they came late, we're now not going to get to go to our school because we were full. And this happens year after year. And it should not happen. Our class sizes should be at the very least on average with our state average. Our state average is 29.4. We are at 33 for intermediate classes and 35 for high school, and it's just too many kids. We can't reach them in our intervention practices. We can't reach them with our policies for restorative practices. It's just too many.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I think I've met most of you on the board. My name is Laura Shirley. I'm a teacher at Rosa Parks. I'm also the SCTA treasurer. I've been teaching at Rosa now for 11 years. So last year, at the 11th hour, the district staff finally approached us about supporting Measure G, which we did. Despite the late start and little cooperation from the district, the absence of Superintendent Banda and district administrators on the campaign trail, aside from Ryan Cochran, and who were real champions and I know worked very hard to try to get it passed. We did our best to see it pass, and it failed by a very narrow margin. But our goals still live on. The students that we have every day still deserve to have arts and music. I'm at a school where we have many foster children, many homeless children, and they deserve to have the best education they can get so they can have the best life that they get. We wanted to include arts and music as a part of the whole child. It's something that will uplift children. It's something that we can do to help them. Unfortunately, like every proposal we made to the district to improve the quality of education for Sac City students, the district rejected our proposals. Like others have asked before me as the elected leaders of the district, how can you say you want our district to be the destination district when your bargaining team has rejected even those modest proposals we have given to them? It is unfair to our students, and it is wrong to have happen at this time when you have millions of dollars. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Mike. How are you? How's everybody? My name is Robert Peters, and I'm a social science teacher at Luther Burbank High School, and I've been with the district 21 plus years. Jay, let me start with you, because last year around this time, you and I stood outside your office at the corner of 12th and J, where I told you privately, but very directly, that if this board failed to support raising SCTA wages, our members would vote to support a strike. All right? And then we would strike. The board failed to support the teachers. The teachers voted to strike. Wages were raised, and a strike was averted. Correct? Okay. So here we are again. Only this time I'm not going to tell you personally or privately. I'm going to tell you all publicly. Support SCTA's proposed contract as bargained, or prepare for another overwhelming vote by the members of SCTA to take to the streets and picket this district and its reluctant leadership. It's going to happen. I might add that I'm also the elections chair, so I have a real feel for this union, and I know the members, okay? Through 15 bargaining sessions, I sat across the table from 6 very well-paid district employees and one very useless lawyer, he and his firm quite handsomely rewarded as well. Your spokesman, the district team was ill-prepared, ill-informed, and between these meetings, woefully ill-advised, okay? Your spokesman had been my principal at Luther Burbank for 11 years. His positions on issues inimical to quality education, such as small class sizes, restorative justice, and common planning time, were always more in line with the real needs of Sac City teachers and students than that of Sac City's bloated administration. Since coming to work here at Cerner, however, it seems as if those positions have been compromised. Apparently, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. All right, you like this one. Other than recalling the words of Upton Sinclair during those bargaining sessions, I thought even more often of the movie The Outlaw Josie Wales. Knowing full well that our district currently holds $98 million in reserve. Okay, in reserve. That's after all the bills are paid. To have to read and hear repeatedly from your bargaining team, and I quote, "The district declines due to fiscal inability to take on additional ongoing costs." Fiscal inability, I thought? They're claiming fiscal inability, at which point all I could think of was that classic line by John Vernon playing Fletcher, telling the senator, pardon my frankness, but don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining, okay? Fiscal inability, we got $98 million. You know what else you can do with $98 million besides fix the Oroville Dam? You can buy an Airbus A320 and still have $1 million left over, okay? You can pay the annual expenditures of the Republic of Palau. You could buy all the Home Shopping Network jewelry sold in 1 year. But if you really want to spread it out, you could sustain the entire British royal family for 2, all right? But we're not asking you to spend $98 million. In fact, much of our proposal could probably be financed without having to spend anything from our reserves at all, particularly for 2016, 2017. We are legally required to hold only 2% of revenues in reserve, which is approximately $10 million. Yet we currently hold 10 times that amount. Our proposal poses no financial threat to those monies, nor for that matter to the financial stability and integrity of the district as a whole, which is why we have gathered here tonight, to demand that you act now, before we have to disrupt this entire community with a very public teachers strike. And strike we will, I assure you. Now is the time to take this extraordinary financial opportunity to fund reductions in class size, fill vacancies, and render teacher compensation comparable to surrounding districts. That you can do easily. In fact, we'd be glad to show you how. We're not selfish people. We work each and every day for the betterment of others. It's what we do. It's who we are. This is not about only us. It's about all of us. It's about making Sacramento City Unified School District the destination school district for students to come to learn, families to feel served, and teachers to want to build their careers. My advice this time around to all of you, spend the money. Spend the money. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speakers, please.
They were on the list as Geraldine Price, Robert Peters, Alan Hill, Victoria Carr,
Good evening. I'm Alan Hill. I've taught third grade at Camellia Basic Elementary School for 22 years. I've worked in 4 different schools in the district. I was even a principal for 1 year. Chose to go back to the classroom. There's almost universal consensus in the educational community that lower class sizes produce better learning environment. Almost every stakeholder in this district, teachers, parents, community members, I believe even most administrators, are strongly advocating for lower class size. Not just K through 3, where I enjoy those benefits, where my students enjoy more of my hands-on work with them, but also 4th through 6th grade, also middle school and high school. I don't know how a high school teacher does it, seeing 175 students a day. I don't know how they keep up with the paperwork. As has been previously mentioned, the district has rejected our proposals to reduce class size, while insisting that current class sizes remain in effect. What does it look like? Currently, class size maximums for 4th through 6th is 33. 7th through 12, or 7th and 8th is 33. Okay. And high school is 35 students in a class. That's too big. I've taught 33 students. It's impossible to know them. It's impossible to keep up with the homework and to do the planning for those classes and for those students and to see their parents. Thank goodness for the parent-teacher home visit program. I get to visit those parents at home. Makes a difference. So what I'm asking you is, how can you claim to be aspiring to be a destination district when you're loading these classes with students where teachers don't have a chance to perform what they can do? Take that small step. reduce some class sizes, see how it works. You'll find it does. We know it does in K through 3, and it'll work through 4th through 12th. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victoria Carr from Bacon Science Teacher. Thank you for allowing me to speak. As a parent of children in the district and a teacher, I'm appalled at the lack of care and concern for children's education. It is evident what is important to you, and that's administrators. If your concerns were for the children, that $98 million would be spent on them and not the district admin and many other district office employees who make a six-figure salary. And let's be real, they're not the ones who do the real work every single day. It is clear that you are all so far removed from the classroom, as is your bargaining team. What is needed for children is smaller class sizes, art, music, PE for all children, and I emphasize all. What is needed to meet the needs of the students receiving special education services? They have great teachers, but they don't have everything they need, and huge caseloads. That especially shows that you are not putting children first. Or counselors and nurses. There are many children in our district going through real life, as you heard many examples today. They need those people in the schools for them every single day. And a classroom with fully credentialed teachers who you pay well. These changes will make a difference. Imagine if all class sizes were smaller and there could be more one-on-one help. Imagine a district with real early intervention. You would probably see fewer problems later on in the grades. And stop saying you want to make us on par with Elk Grove. They're going to continue to lap us because they've put these practices in place. Either you're trying to be the best and make every single student a priority, no matter what school, what economic status, what learning level, whatever, or you are failing. And unfortunately, you are failing. You want to be the best? You want to be the destination district? Guess what? Your very well-paid lawyer and Mr. Appel also agree that what we are asking for is what is needed. So do what you are legally obligated to do and put the money where it goes. Back to the students.
Next up, we have Nafisha Young, Hassan McWarner. Awesome, thank you. Miss Beckett and Ziljan Beckett.
Hello, board. My name is Nafisa Young, and I'm one of the school psychologists here at Sac City. I am currently over at Cal Middle School and also MLK K through 8, and I'm also one of the ED psychologists that's over 17 of our schools on the west side of the district. Currently, our school psychologists are faced with being completely understaffed and overworked. For example, most of my colleagues carry on average about 5 schools. We write over 100 reports per year. The National Association for School Psychologists suggests that there should be 1 school psychologist for every 500 to 700 students as the most cost-effective way to use a school psychologist's skills and expertise, which exist but are underutilized resources in schools. RTI, MTSS, behavior support, restorative practices, these are all things that school psychologists can do. However, the district's proposal is 2 to 3 times more what the national average is. The district has proposed that school psychologists carry a caseload of 1 school psychologist to every 1,500 students. National reports show that that is not sufficient. The district's mission of putting children first is not being shown when the district decides that it's more important to stall bargaining processes by having our district bargaining team being told to stall district proceedings due to hired counsel. What has taken place behind the closed doors at district bargaining sessions is coming to the light. Not only are the members of SCTA watching the district's actions and the board's actions, but most importantly, so is the city, the state, and most importantly, the students and the parents that we serve. They deserve the very best. We deserve as a bargaining unit to have a bargaining team that is putting the needs of our children first instead of taking the misplaced direction of council who is telling them to use stall tactics. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Hassan McWhorter, and I'm a teacher at the Met High School. I've been in the district since 2000. It's about 16, 17 years. I did learn arithmetic. All right. Earlier this year, the district tried to move forward with an ill-conceived top-down program called SPARK, led by the top-heavy equity department. How top-heavy? The SPARK initiative has a budget of approximately $1.5 million and 8 staff people, 2 of whom are administrators making $187,000 and the other $167,000 respectively in total compensation. 2 administrators who are responsible for supervising 6 staff and eating up over 20% of the total budget. After a lot of anguish, the SPARK program was put on hold to give us an opportunity to create a truly innovative, inclusive, bottom-up restorative practices culture in this district. So it was with great disappointment that the district has been reluctant to truly engage on this issue at the bargaining table. The district conceded across the bargaining table that the superintendent failed to follow board policy by engaging teachers and community stakeholders prior to the unlawful imposition of SPARK. But rather than taking the step in accepting responsibility for this enormous failure by starting over, the district continues to try to reignite SPARK. No pun intended. And in this, still refusing to listen to the input of teachers, students, families, and our community partners. At our first bargaining session on October 11th, 2016, we made a comprehensive proposal to create a bottom-up restorative practices program in the district. Our proposal was jointly developed with the direct input of Mr. Carl Pinkston from the Black Parallel School Board, who is an active member of our bargaining team. The district continues to reject our proposal in favor of its top-down SPARK initiative. The failed leadership of the Equity Office has been an ongoing issue in this district. But rather than making the necessary changes and coming to the bargaining table to discuss this issue in good faith, the district clings to a repudiated leader, and model. Incorporating a comprehensive restorative practice is something that is critically important to educators in Sac City. The district says it's important too, but action speaks louder than words. And in the words of my grandfather, who lived to be 101, he said, "Talk is cheap unless you're talking to a lawyer." Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cheshwa Beckett, and I teach at Rosemont High School. I am also a parent of children in this district, and I want to begin by thanking the district. Thank you. My first experience as a parent in this district was through the Parent Participation Preschool. Miss Anita Warmack was an amazing teacher. She was incredibly nurturing and started my children off on the right foot on their education path. However, that positive experience is not necessarily the same for all the parents in this district. Many parents are sending their children off to classrooms that do not have teachers. I am committed to this district and want to see the district doing the right thing by the students. I absolutely understand the need to be fiscally responsible. The state mandates 2% of the revenues in the reserve fund, which is approximately $10 million or so. You currently have over $98 million in reserves. That is money that is allocated for our students today. You are stockpiling money and not spending it on my children or on any of the children in this district. You are showing us where your priorities are, and that is not the children, and that is incredibly upsetting to me. The teachers have requested things that directly affect our students, such as class size reduction for grades 4 through 12, arts and music classes available to all students, increasing the numbers of social workers, nurses, implementing an early intervention program, offering competitive wages to help ensure teachers in all our classrooms, in all our classes. These are all things that directly affect our students in a positive way. Please take care of our students and support the things that we have proposed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zildjian Beckett. I am a third grade student in Miss Butterfield's class at Phoebehurst Elementary. I really like having Miss Butterfield as a teacher because she is nice, she has lots of books, and it is important that we read. She makes learning fun by playing games with us and giving us mnemonics, and I look forward to seeing her every day. It is sad that in some classrooms there aren't permanent teachers. I have a friend that just needs a little help with fractions, and he is willing to ask Miss Butterfield for help. If he had a different teacher every day, he probably wouldn't feel comfortable asking for help. My brother Strummer is shy and worries about a lot, like minimum days and new things. When he is worrying, we can talk to his teacher, Ms. Relis, and let her know. It makes him feel better that she knows that he is worrying and that she will look out for him. In conclusion, I think you should make sure there are permanent teachers in every class. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speakers, please.
Lindsay Layton, Alice Mercer, Ricardo Martinez, and Damian Harmony.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Layton, and I'm a school nurse here at the district. I'm here tonight to express my concern over the school board's lack of commitment to ensuring that students in our district have access to a credentialed school nurse. Not only do school nurses keep children healthy, safe, in school, and ready to learn, they advance the well-being, academic success, and lifelong health of their students. School nurses were once a vital member of the school staff, bridging the gap between healthcare and education. In recent years, funding for school nurses has become less available, and our district now has only 27 nurses divided between 77 schools, far exceeding the recommended ratio of 1 nurse to every 700 students. Among those 27 nurses, only 3 of us are assigned to just 1 school. I am one of those nurses. I work at Hiram Johnson, and I'm there 5 days a week. As some of you may know, Hiram Johnson has a school-based health center, which allows me to send my students to a doctor and a dentist free of charge. As a school nurse, I ensure my students' health needs are met by hosting medical and dental screenings, providing health education, administering emergency medical treatment as needed. I have ridden with students in the back of ambulances, counseled students about unplanned pregnancies, performed suicide risk assessments, and driven students to medical appointments when they themselves have not had transportation. Yes, I am lucky to be able to provide those services to my students. But what about the schools in our district who go without the service of a school nurse? What services can a nurse provide when she has 5, 6, even 7 schools? The answer is not enough. The nurses in our district are far overextended, which prevents students from receiving the care and support that they need. Our students deserve far better. If any of you have not had the opportunity to speak directly to a school nurse, I invite you to do so. The nurses at this district will gladly discuss with you the many obstacles we address every day, including the complex medical and emotional issues of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next 3 speakers.
Alice Mercer, Ricardo Martinez, Damian Harmony.
Hi, my name is Damian Harmony. I'm a Latin teacher at John F. Kennedy High School. I want to start by asking you guys a question, if you don't mind. How many of you want to see our district be competitive?
Yep.
Oh, good. 1 out of 7. That's alarming and disturbing. I would have appreciated a better response, quite honestly. How many of you guys want to see us be more competitive? Hey, look at that. We work here, and that's what we want. And you should too, if you care about the children. I have 3 friends who taught special ed in our district, all of whom moved on to greener pastures for better pay. They were fiercely dedicated to our students. One restarted the drama program at my school. She moved on because she could get better pay. 2 others moved on who were really good at their jobs so they could get better pay. A lot of us stayed because we really love our kids. We deserve better pay for that attitude alone. I have 3 friends who are counselors who have moved on for better pay. This is alarming. If you want to be competitive, you need to redefine competitive. Right now, we're the Cleveland Browns. Right now, we're the Philadelphia 76ers. We're the Montreal Expos. That's how competitive we are. Yeah, the Expos don't exist anymore, just in case you were curious. There's a quote by Pearl S. Buck, and it says, "You can judge a society by how it helps the weakest of its members." Now, I'm paraphrasing, but you get the idea. My son has special needs. I am not bringing him to this district. I am finding other districts for him until we get our house in order. And we haven't done that yet. You have a bunch of money sitting there. You're saving for the future. I say you spend for the future. You need to spend money on our future. I'm going to leave you with one more quote that's paraphrased because I promised Nikki I wouldn't swear at you. Kanye West, thank you, pay me.
Angie Sutherland.
Yep.
Miss Castleberry. And Ian Arnold.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Angie Sutherland. I'm the chair of the Community Advisory Committee, and just wanted to give a few updates and also ask a few questions. First off, as an update, I just wanted to thank Member Vang for attending our CAC meeting and listening to all the parents' concerns about IEPs and the challenges that go along with that for parents and getting the students the help that they need. We had a wonderful discussion with a special education advocate, Michael Rosenberg, and we were able to share parent-driven IEP questions. With regard to the superintendent search, many of our members have been attending the different sessions, and we're actually having a special meeting on March 21st. So we welcome everyone to come at 6:30 p.m. to give, we'll be giving input on the hiring of the superintendent. And one of the questions we have is whether the special education audit will be completed and publicized in time for the selection process. This was slated to be done in the fall. We have been looking forward to some movement on the concerns that we've expressed to the board regarding adding so many new special day classes and halting the inclusive practices, halting the expansion of that. It's been halted for some time now, and so that's one of our major concerns that we would like movement on. In addition, we would also like to know what the implementation plan is on the 2 board resolutions that were passed in October, one being on disability history and spreading that out to the schools to encourage more learning integration about disability history in the class and more all-inclusive activities and more collaboration and sharing of disability history information. And then the other is the resolution on dyslexia awareness that was passed in October. We want to know what the plan is on Sac City supporting that early intervention and assessment for students with dyslexia, and also raising awareness and understanding so that we identify and treat and prevent problems associated with dyslexia, and also that we can ensure the success for every student with dyslexia enrolled in our district. So we would like to know, that's one of our questions, is what is going on with that and what has been done so far since those resolutions were passed. And we also would have been requesting to be a part of the development of the multi-tiered system of supports. And we know there's a leadership group. We don't know who's on that group. We haven't been provided with any details. And we're parents. Many of us are acting as case managers for our children. And we should have involvement in this process since we work very diligently in supporting our children's needs across all the services and settings. So we would like to know the methodology and process that's guiding the group, who serves on the group, and also to have representation on the group. And also, we would like to request that the board have a special board workshop on supporting students with disabilities, that to help broaden your understanding of how students with disabilities are learning and being supported in the district. I'm not sure if you had one last year. I remember the year before there being one, but we would really like it to be more interactive and more data and more information being shared on that to back it up. And then lastly, we would like to invite you, we're having a workshop on dyslexia on March 21st, but we've moved it to April 25th. But we do have our general meeting coming up on March 28th here at Cerna Center. We'll be discussing the LCAP and also the EL master plan and other agenda items. And we're starting a new peer-to-peer parent coffee that's going to be monthly, and it'll be like an informal place where parents can come and get help and hopefully reduce some of the issues in resolving concerns for their students, and we can help with that. So we would really like answers to all these questions. Whenever we ask questions, we don't always get answers. So if you have any answers for us, I would really appreciate it.
We will get back to you, and let me let Member Ryan also, I think, has a comment.
So Angie, I just wanted to ask, if you haven't submitted the list of requests via email, will you do that so that we have an electronic copy as well, so that we can follow up on the 5 individual requests that you put forward?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I will.
Member Pritchett.
Superintendent Bonda, Superintendent, there used to be an area on our website, so when questions like this were asked at board meetings, the answers were put up on the website. Does it no longer exist?
I don't recall. I mean, I know we went through a redo of the website, but I don't recall that we used to actually post those, but we can.
I'm seeing Elliot shake his head, so I'm going to make that request that go back up. Okay.
It is there. If you click on the board meeting, there's a tab that says response to public comment, and it's never filled in.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that it gets back up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll reach out to you as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Mr. Arnold.
Good evening, President Hanson, Superintendent Bonda, board members. My name is Ian Arnold. I represent SEIU Local 1021, representing your classified employees. We're going to go into bargaining very shortly. Hopefully we have a more pleasant bargaining than it sounds like is happening currently. But I'm here tonight because I want to talk about Senate Bill 250. If we've been paying attention at all in the last year and a half or so, we've seen cases where students have been turned away, not been provided food, sometimes publicly shamed because their parents have not kept up with their lunch bills. We've also seen cafeteria workers in other school districts fired for providing meals to kids who couldn't afford the meal that day. Senator Hertzberg has introduced Senate Bill 250, which would prevent that from happening, would mean that we do not treat children who cannot afford a meal any differently than children who can afford a meal, and sets a process in place to how to contact those parents to make sure they are paying. We don't believe the problem is particularly widespread in Northern California, but I know just anecdotally there are a number of kids who have missed meals because their parents haven't been able to keep the money in the fund. What we're asking is that this board consider at a future date endorsing this measure, and we actually have provided a copy of our letter of support so you can see sort of what Senator Hertzberg is looking for. Lastly, a couple of our cafeteria workers that we represent have been asked to testify on behalf of this bill, and we would ask that they be permitted to do so on district time, just as the superintendent would be allowed to do if he was testifying to this assembly. Okay?
Thank you. I think we can work that out, and it's an issue that we've talked about at CSBA. Member Ryan.
Ian, I was just going to say, we have a board policy committee that will be coming up shortly. I'll make sure that this comes before the policy committee. I think it's closely aligned with the things that we would support. So we'll be able to follow up and hopefully over the course of the next couple of months, provide letters of support throughout the legislative process.
I'm going to read through 5 more cards to see if they showed up or not. Alice Mercer, Ricardo Martinez, Robert Peters, Geraldine Price, and okay. Anyone else?
All right. Any other speakers on there? Nathaniel?
They left. Okay,
anybody
thank you.
else? Okay, great. All right, very well. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Thank you very much. Let me call up Mr. Kramer. Item 10.1, renewal of a charter petition for Washington Carver.
I think Allegra is going to be pleasantly surprised that public comment went a little quicker than anticipated.
Oh, well.
The other charter principal was sharing his noodles with me.
Nice.
All right, well, good evening, Board President Hanson, esteemed board members, Superintendent Bonda. I'm Jack Kramer, and I'm the Director of Innovative Schools and Charter Oversight. With me tonight, I have Allegra Alessandra, that is lead petitioner and principal of George Washington Carver. And to start off, we do have a double feature tonight, and we'll begin with the charter renewal of George Washington Carver. All right, tonight's presentation, it will entail an overview of George Washington Carver, the district's, an introduction to the district's charter review team, the minimum standard for charter renewal consideration, criteria to deny a charter renewal, staff's analysis, and finally it will conclude with the staff's recommendation. George Washington Carver, they have been in operations for 13 years. The opening date, July 2003, as America's Choice High School. Through a material revision in 2007, they became their current form, George Washington Carver. Their current enrollment is 333, and they are serving students in the 9th through 12th grades.
We
Their
can
site is
read
located-
the slides, so if you can move
Okay.
it along and give us the information, cut to the chase, we'd really appreciate that, because we had a
All
full,
right. Well, you will
we had a
have no
full
argument from me, sir.
presentation earlier.
All right, well, there we have our district charter review team, 15 of our finest members, and that is the team that reviewed the petition. The minimum standard for charter renewal consideration is per Ed Code 47607, and it has those 4 criteria, the first 3 being the dated API-based measures.
We can read those too. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. The 4th is a comparison model. The criteria to deny a charter renewal, and I will gladly let you read
Thank you.
those 6.
Appreciate it.
It is the staff's analysis that the charter school, George Washington Carver, has in fact met all 6 of the criteria needed for charter renewal. With that, it is the charter review team's recommendation for the board to adopt Resolution 2928 to approve the charter renewal for, I'm going to let you read that.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
And did you want to speak?
I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity, not only to present our charter to you these last couple months, but to actually open and run the first public Waldorf high school.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And that concludes our presentation.
Ms. Pritchett. Do we have any public comment?
No public comments.
There's a couple of Carver teachers who managed to get here and stick with it, so I'd like to...
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Presence is the public comment.
Ms. Pritchett.
First, I just wanted to thank Allegra for your hard work and inspiration. You really keep it going over there, and all of your teachers always have a smiling face, and it leaks down to the students, and every time I go there, I get such a good feeling. Second, I'm going to motion to approve Resolution number 2928 for the renewal charter for George Washington Carver.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Hopefully there's some left.
Save me some.
Vince looked hungry. I don't know. Yeah. All right. 10.2. The Met High School.
Okay, let's see what I learned from the first one. All right, good evening. This is the second portion of the double feature, and we will have the Met Sacramento High School for their charter renewal. This is lead petitioner and principal, Mr. Vince Wolf. The contents for this presentation is in essence the same, except specific to the Met. Thank you. Same team. We have the same minimum standards for charter renewal consideration, of which the Met has met that standard. And the same criteria to deny a charter renewal. It is the staff's analysis that the Met Sacramento High School has indeed met the requirements of the 6 criteria listed. And with that, it is the charter review team's recommendation for the board to adopt Resolution 2929 to approve the charter renewal for the Met Sacramento High School.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf.
Thanks. I just wanted to thank you guys for hearing us out. And for the past 13 years, I've been at the Met Sacramento High School. And I respect that we have a district that is open-minded about having diverse ways to educate our students. And the last thing I want to say is I feel that in the last 5 or 6 years, our school has felt more like a district school like we are, which has been really nice, working with the people in the district, collaborating and building relationships. Thanks.
Do we have any public comment, Mr. Brown?
No, sir.
Very good. Mr. Minnick.
All right, I just want to say that I love this school and they've had a huge impact on both my kids, and I just wanted to be the one to move to approve this.
All right. Any other discussion? Voices of people in support? I'll echo my colleagues.
We've got some folks back there.
Hey! All right. Thank you for joining us. All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Ayes have it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kramer. Item 10.3.
Good evening, President Hansen, Superintendent Banda, and members of the board. tonight we are recommending your approval of Resolution 2924 to close retiree fund. During the course of the 2015-16 audit, the auditors, in conformity with the requirements of the Government Accounting Standards Board Statements 43 and 45, recommended that we close retiree fund. Under the new clarifying guidelines, these funds will no longer be included in the district financial statements. The clarification relates to the plan structure in the manner in which the assets are held. Under GASB 43 and 45, these assets do not belong to the employer, but in the trust for the exclusive benefit of the plan members. There is also legal protection of the plan assets from creditors, stated in paragraph 4 of Statement 43. Under the clarification guidelines, these funds can only be used to pay retiree health benefits and no longer part of the district financial statements. The district will monitor these funds. They are in the Calper Trust, but it will not report in the funds in our financial statements. This new practice is consistent statewide with other school districts. There is no impact on the budget. The funds are invested in the Calper Trust, will earn a higher return than if were invested in the county treasurer. However, there is also a risk of loss since these funds are invested in the public market. We are requesting that you approve the resolution to comply with the recommendations provided by the auditors. Closing the retiree fund will align with the new standards practice to keep track of retiree funds. Thank you.
What's the dollar amount that's in the fund?
So this 2020, there is fund is $22 million, but we will make everything will go into the upper trust, where we have about $44 million in the trust.
So we have $44 million in the trust total now.
Mm-hmm.
So that $44 million shows as part of that mysterious surplus that everyone thinks that we've got some gigantic amount of money that we're sitting on, but actually is money that's in our retiree healthcare trust fund.
Correct, and this will be make it very clear that we no longer have these funds.
Right. I wish our teacher, advocates and teachers would be here to understand that a big part of what they think is money that's just sitting there waiting to be spent. One, we can't even spend it because it's in a trust fund, and two, it's money that's set aside for employee retirement health care benefits, so we're actually being fiscally responsible, and the money belongs to all of our employees, that it's there in retirement. So it's frankly a very, I'll just be polite, and it's egregious that that is used as a bludgeon, as if we're holding money back from children. It's really beyond the pale. So this is a long time in coming of putting this money in the right financial column, so people don't erroneously think that this is some magical surplus bucket of a pot of gold that we can spend on whatever we want. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, or I have a motion. Nope, sorry, public
We
comment.
have one public comment from Laura Vu.
Welcome.
Good evening, Superintendent Banda, members of the board, and thank you so much, Board President Jay Hansen, for inviting LCAP PAC members to come out here to just share with you all about the process that we've had. And so my name's Laura Vu. This is actually my first year being on the appointed LCAP PAC, and I participated in the English Learner last year. So I'm just going to share some recurring themes of discussion that has been consistent in coming up in our meetings. I think first off the bat, we notice of various levels of understandings amongst the different committee members. And so some of us are veterans who've been part of the process for a very long time, and then there are others who are completely new to LCAP. And so getting on the same page has been very difficult. It could possibly be the time frame, and so appointments should be made earlier, meetings should start earlier the year. A suggestion that has been thrown out every meeting was having a full Saturday to just have an overview of the adopted LCAP, but that's not going to happen because we're in March. And it could be that Kathy Morrison is overworked, and so she definitely needs a consistent staff to help her prepare the meetings, go facilitate, even document, having meeting notes to help us be on the same page. And yeah, and so the other theme that keeps coming up is the information being like, even last night, folks were frustrated about how we still don't have enough data to really see the impact of the previous recommendations from the LCAP. And so it could be something that this committee this year really writes recommendations of what those data and metrics look like, so that in future, parent advisory committees on the LCAP can really be able to request those data and refer to evaluate how those recommendations have had impact, or if the school district is really moving towards our goals. And then lastly, the other thing is we are being told that, and I think some folks have hesitations about the accountability portion of this, because there seems to be a disconnection or a gap between the school district LCAP and then the school site council. And so one thing that board members can do better is to help us bridge to school site council chairs, or maybe even appoint the school site council chairs to be part of the LCAP committee, so that that communication is on the same page too. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Laura. We asked folks to come from the LCAP committee.
On the next item.
Yeah, it was going to be on the next item, so we apologize for calling you up, but I will reserve my comments, and the rest of the board will too. But we'll ask, Mr. Pinkston, if you would like to. We'll have Carl make his comments at that time too, and then Laura, we might just ask you to come sit up here, and then we can ask a couple comments too. So we really appreciate you being here and what you're doing on the LCAP. So we had Christina.
A really quick question. So just so I fully understand, President Hansen was asking you about, the erroneous money that they say that we have. So the $98 million that we currently have in our general fund, that money will go down.
So there's no such a thing as $98 million. That includes $22 million when the auditors closed this fund.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually like $71 million, and you will notice in the next item. So
Okay.
those funds, like I said, they are restricted. They're for the health benefits, and by closing this fund and put it in the trust makes that very clear. So it's very transparent what it
It'll be
is.
taken out of the general fund.
So they were never put in the general fund when the auditors closed that. You remember back in December, they explained it really quick. They had to close that and had to put it someplace, but it was just a holding place until we decide where to put those funds on, where to put those funds.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, Member Ryan.
No problem. But Gerardo, I think the big distinction here is that the difference between that bucket of money and the ability to make the types of investments that were suggested tonight, because absolutely I agree with that list of investments, and frankly it breaks my heart that we're unable to make them. But the problem is that those are in large part one-time monies. And so we don't have a guarantee that if we spend down, let's say we were to make all of the investments, which are absolutely investments that will benefit our children, we have no guarantee that we'd be able to continue those investments next year, the year following, 3 years out.
100% correct.
So that is the big concern. The big concern is not that we can't spend this money today, because we could.
Yeah.
And arguably, it would have great benefit to our teachers and our students. It's how do we sustain that rather than have to make then cuts to teachers, nurses, increase class size again,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately let go of programs that we had just rebirthed.
Correct. And we will show you in the next item to where those funds, how they're allocated to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Do I have a motion to take this from conference to action? Yeah, I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain? Now do we have a motion to approve this? Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstain. Thank you very much. Item 10.4.
Good evening, Board President Hanson, Superintendent Banda, members of the board. The goal of our presentation is to provide a brief budget with information as of January 31st, 2017. Education Code 42130 requires that we submit a second interim by March 15 to the County Office of Education. This was submitted 2 days ago. We will discuss Education Code 42130 in more detail on the next slide. The documents that are in your package are over 150 pages. We will summarize our presentation. By discussing the general fund summary, our enrollment ADA projection, our multi-year forecast, and fund balance. Finally, we will discuss the fiscal condition of the district. Education Code 42130 says that school district must report minimum twice a year, first interim with data as of October 31st, and second interim with data as of January 31st. And if school district is in qualified status, a third interim with information as of April 30. District must certify themselves as positive, meeting obligations will meet for current plus two fiscal years. Qualified obligations will meet for current year, but not into the next 2 fiscal years. Negative obligations will not be met in current or subsequent fiscal years. The certification for tonight is positive. Where do revenue comes from? 80% of our revenues come from the state. You will see the local control funding formula, 71%, plus 17% from other state revenues. We know the state economy is very volatile. Volatile is the opposite of stable, and we must be prepared for it. What are the changes in the second interim compared to first interim? You will notice that they are very consistent from first interim. The big changes is in federal revenue. There is an increase of $3.9 million, or about 8.5% increase. And this is due to the School Improvement Grant, or SIG, that was awarded to a school district in December. We just discussed the revenues. How about the expenditures? 90% or unrestricted general fund, it is spent on salaries and benefits. We are a people business. What are the changes in unrestricted salaries? Those changes are a decrease of $3 million, and this is a reduction mainly for vacant positions. We are in March, and we will get some savings from those positions. This is not planned. We advertised, but this got to this point where we just haven't filled those positions. Restricted expenditures are for specific purposes. They must have legal requirements, such as Title I or after-school funds are examples of restricted funds. They must be used to support disadvantaged students. Salaries and benefits for restricted funds is 58%. Out of the $40.7 million in operation expenditures, the majority is related to special ed and after-school programs. Out of the $40.7 million, $31 million is for the special ed and after-school programs. Restricted expenditures have increased over $1 million from first interim. The majority increase is in allocation of Title I funds. Another way to look at expenditures is by function. Function describes activities or service in order to accomplish a goal. In other words, groups together related activities. 81% of our total expenditures are for instructional support. This is the 73% for class instructional, plus 8% of the pupil service, which includes counselors, social workers, and nurses. General administration is 5%. Our enrollment, we are projecting enrollment about flat for the following year. This is actually good news. In analysis, before the enrollment goes up, there is the flattening. So this is, we are not there. We are increasing enrollment, but at least we are not decreasing at the rate that we were in previous years. Ms. Gloria Chan will take the rest of the presentation.
Good evening, Vice President Ryan, Superintendent Bonda, and members of the board. There are many outside influences and pressures on our budget. One of these is the increasing STRS and PERS contribution rates. When LCFF started in 2013, the PERS rate was at 11.4%. By 2023, it will be at 28.2%. This is an increase of almost 150%. For STRS, we started at 8.25%, and it will increase to at least 19.5% by 2023. This does not yet include the additional increase because STRS lowered its projected investment rate of return. These PERS and STRS contributions are not optional. They are a cost we must pay. By 2017-18, we will head into deficit spending of $9.1 million. Deficit spending is where we spend our money, our expenses. That's when we spend more than the money we receive, our revenue. For example, if your car breaks down and the mechanic tells you it will cost you $1,800 to repair your car, you need to get your car to get to work. You need a working car, and you also need your working car to get your family around. But your monthly paycheck doesn't go up because of this unexpected expense. Instead, you must dip into your savings to pay for this repair so you can have your working car. What this means to our district is that in 2017-18 and 18-19, we must dip into our savings, our fund balance, to keep the district and our programs running. As we look at the historic levels, reserve levels in California, on the slide, the blue line in the graph is for our elementary school districts, the orange line is for high school districts, and the gray line is for unified school districts. As you can see, for 2015-16, the average unified school district reserve was at 16.45%. In the past, our fund balance reserves have been far below that of other unified districts. With low reserves, we do not have any flexibility. If you look at 2011-12, unified districts had a reserve of 15.44%, while we were at 3.12%. This was the time we had to take painful layoffs and cuts. We had to increase our class sizes and cut 50% of our custodians. But the board has been mindful, and our fund balance reserves are levels that are rising closer to the unified average. This will allow us to survive longer through the next downturn. We estimate our fund balance reserve to be 13.8% in 2016-17, 12.5% in 17-18, and 10.7% in 18-19. Of these percentages, about 4% is our reserve for economic uncertainties. Our ending fund balance is estimated to be $71.1 million this year. It is made up of several components. These components are non-spendable, assigned, and reserved for economic uncertainty. We must maintain non-spendable and reserve for economic uncertainty, as this is our petty cash, stores, and required emergency reserves. Assigned includes funds for textbooks, textbook adoption, and covering our deficit in future years. Because our fund balance reserves as second interim, our district is able to certify as positive. This means that we will remain solvent for this fiscal year and the next 2 years. This is quite an accomplishment, as many districts are beginning to certify as qualified or negative. Thank you to the board and to our superintendent for thinking of our current and future students. Thank you.
We have a public comment.
We have 3 comments. Ask Laura Vu to come back up to see if the board had any questions for her. She wanted to. Carl Pinkston and Grace Trujillo.
Good evening. Sorry for my interruption. I thought I had missed the, the agenda item. Today, my name is Carl Pinkston. I'm representing the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee. Part of this is to give you an update so you know what's going on, but also, so I'm going to give a very general description of what's been going on, and then Tony Tinker will actually follow up as part of that process. So just to let you know that we've actually, the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee has had 5 meetings. We are projecting that by April 6th to make a board presentation on the rubric, and then May 4th to have a draft LCAP. We will be meeting on April 5th to actually come together around those recommendations that we would like to see in the LCAP for this year, because this is a new 3-year template. So we're, to a degree, starting from scratch, but not necessarily starting from scratch. We will be using our LCAP Parent Advisory Committee have met and set a framework, an outer limit, a parameter for our work in terms of community priorities. And 70% of our members felt the achievement gap was the most important component that needed to be addressed in the LCAP. 70% also believe school climate was a critical component, and that's going to be our framework in terms of our input. College, 55% was college readiness, 50% was parent engagement, 45% teachers development, and lastly, 40% English language learning. We're going to be soliciting and getting all the input from our members, from the community, from the EL, Parent Advisory Committee. We want to be able to have all of these input included in part of the process, but also most important for us is to be able to get this information to you prior to the LCAP adoption or review, so that you don't have to comment on it after the LCAP process is completed. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony, and she will speak more.
Good evening. It's been a pleasure to actually work on the LCAP. I am surrounded by some very dynamic parents and a very dynamic person in Kathy, who's going ahead and leading us towards doing this. But one of the things that I've noticed as a body of individuals coming together as parents, we can't provide you the feedback that you're looking for. And looking at all of the data and inputs that you're getting from the superintendent, town halls, to several other pieces of data that's already out there, we're having a hard time being able to give you the inputs and also to time with you, because you've already had a first interim of the budget, a second interim of the budget. And looking at what CCEE has put out on their dashboard, there are several spaces for us to be able to, where they see us being able to work with you back and forth seamlessly, mutual reciprocity, you speak, I speak, we're working together to get to that goal, to hear what both the parents and the community want in this local control funding. So one of the things that I really would encourage the board to do is to look at us, to be able to come and speak to you, maybe monthly, bi-monthly, to be able to put input as you're getting input and be able to give us input back, and then for us to give you feedback back as well. I think it would be a much more seamless process for this to happen. I think one of the things that I noticed coming in is that we're kind of hitting the ground running. You've already had several iterations speaking about all of this, and we're hitting the ground running, and we have no idea sometimes when we're talking about these are the priorities that we want to speak to. We have no idea if that's in line with what your surveys are saying, but also what's in line with what the board is speaking about as well. So I think this is a good beginning to making processes and to be making strives towards having that parent input in line with also what CCEE is saying and in the dashboard as well. And I think just having more seamless conversations where we can be more transparent in terms of when Gerardo is speaking on the budget, there's things that we're having gaps with, and we're saying, well, how do we know there's what things are working and what things are not working? How do we know what things, such as ethnic studies, such as things at the Met, at other schools, you have data that's telling you these things are working, but we don't know those things. So I think for us to be working more together as a body, as a collective body with board and parent advisory together is something that I wanted to bring to your attention.
Thank you very much. Do we have one more comment? Grace, I think.
Grace Trujillo.
Great.
Good evening, members of the board and
Stay
superintendent.
close by, Carl. No, don't believe it.
And Jose Banda. You know, I was going to say, you know, as I mentioned before, coming to these board meetings, I'm glad that Gerardo has put together something that reflects what's going on with our budget. You know, I think it's a key way of the success in our future. And I also want to take the time, I know I missed the first part, and I heard it was quite interesting. I had to take my son to therapy and all kinds of stuff. But I wanted to come because I think we need the voice of parents. Where's the union for the parents? I've always come up here and said that. You know, that's the key thing. You know, we're here because kids need to be educated. Kids need a future. I think I was reading an article in the Sacramento Bee that saying California has the poorest kids. You know, and it breaks my heart to see some of these neighborhoods and some of these kids. You know, unfortunately, my son was put in a group home. And in that process, I found out that some of the mothers one mother committed suicide because she didn't have the services. At that point, I thought to myself, you know, my problems are minute compared to other people. The reason I stand here is because I want to thank you, the board, for standing up. Because I know sometimes there's retaliation, there's bullying, there's confrontation when you make these hard decisions. And I think we need to make them because what's going to happen for the future of our kids? I know right now you as the board are being bullied in different ways. You don't need to say it, because I have. And my family has paid the price. But you know, the way I look at it, the Lord has blessed us in so many different ways, and I stand here with my head straight because the truth always comes out. And faith with the Lord, when you're doing the right thing for our kids, He will help you. So I want to thank each board member thank you for standing up and for making these very difficult decisions. And when things get tough and you are bullied and said things, talked about your family, or your family gets hurt by it, remember, you're helping another child. Because when we die, we all have to answer to somebody. And the key thing is there's always a light on the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. So I want to thank our folks for coming and that are working on the LCAP, Carl, Laura, and Tony, and Grace is always an advocate. What my intention is from starting, I believe we're going to have a full presentation by the LCAP committee at our next board meeting in 2 weeks. So we'll give you more time to prepare. So thank you for being quick to respond at our request at the meeting last night to have representation today when we're talking about the budget. It's our intention that at once a month from here through the end of the budget in June, that we'll have a report from you to us, and that we can figure out ways to be more proactively working together so that we're hearing your voice and getting your feedback as we develop both the LCAP and as we develop the budget. So, you know, as I've said in the past, when this program first got created by the state of California, it was a new process for everybody. And I know every district is struggling, trying to figure out the right way to do it. and I feel good that we're, in at least hopefully at least in the top 10% of implementation, and that I want to keep us going down the track and making it better and better and better, and figuring out ways to work proactively with all of you and making sure that we're hearing the voice and hearing recommendations about doing a Saturday meeting, figuring out ways so you feel like your time is being valued, that we're getting the feedback, that we can support staff and make sure Kathy knows that she's going to be a valued part of this, and making sure there's a direct mechanism so we're getting information back and you're not just creating some document that's going to gather dust on a shelf. And I think, we had, startup problems when we first got going of figuring out what was the right pathway to get that information to us. So I want to hear your recommendations about ways to do that. At a minimum, we're going to have you on the agenda each month, going forward. So send representations, and we'll put a significant amount of time available. It's not going to just be 2 minutes. We want to hear from you, and then it's going to give you a chance to give us direct feedback, and then we can, figure out where are the holes of information you need. What are the things that we're hearing about that we think you need to know about too? And we go into the negotiations and we have proposals in front of us that are $30, $40, $50 million asks that should be bounced back and forth with all of our partners. So we're all in this together because, it's not our money. It's not like if we're sitting on some bank account, we take it home at the end of the day. We're volunteer stewards, like all the rest of you that are volunteering your time too. So thank you for that. And
I just wanted to say that Kathy Morrison has taken a Herculean task of being a part of this project from the get-go. I've seen her mature, develop, taking the punches along the way. And I wanted to say that part of what we're trying to do this year is to really lighten her load so that she can both assist us and guide us in the work, but also that the burden doesn't fall with her, that it also should fundamentally fall with the committee. That's the first thing that I really want to make clear. The second point I really want to make clear is we really want to let you know what we're doing, and so you know what some of the discussions that are taking place. In the past, you always got that at the end. We're really going to work really hard to make sure you hear from us early on as part of the process of one negotiation, the other one-stop staffing, all of that takes place in the mix of making that happen. And as you well know, I carry 3 hats, which is kind of tough for me, not only representing the LCAP Parent Advisory Committee, the Black Parallel School Board, and the Community Priority Coalition. So please work with me when I'm switching hats because I'm representing different constituencies at different times, but with the singular focus as it relates to the LCAP process.
thank you, Carl. Member Ryan.
Thank you, President Hansen. I appreciate your willingness to make this a standing item now through June. I think it's sorely needed. And, I want to just say to everyone who spoke on behalf of the Parent Advisory Committee and made recommendations, in my opinion, this process has evolved from one year to the next. And the one thing that has been very clear to me is that I think this is probably the best group of parent advocates that we've ever had on a Parent Advisory Committee. There's a level of knowledge, sophistication, ability to delve into the LCAP process at a level we hadn't seen in years past. That being said, and I just want to put this out again, it's absolutely essential that the board members who've appointed each of you hear from you on a regular basis. It is not, in fact, a burden, but a pleasure to be able to hear direct feedback about what's working, concerns, constructive feedback for improving the process moving forward. I know that Jay's phenomenal appointee, Laura Metune, couldn't be here tonight. She's a dear friend and colleague. One of the things that she has said is that she wants to make sure that looking ahead, there is this ability to figure out a way to translate not only the goals, but the data for the community at large. And she's been very successful at doing that at the community college level with things like the Student Success Scorecard, figuring out a way to take complex measures and translate that in a digestible way so that, in fact, we can follow, are we seeing gains for our students? And so we have to harness that, collective knowledge. And I would say as soon as we wind up this process, begin the advocacy and the information sharing to gear up for next year. And we need to do that so we also retain good people like you from one year to the next, so we continue to grow our knowledge base and then mentor new parent advisory committee members. So once again, thank you for all the time that you're spending on this. I know that it's probably more than you originally anticipated, but your input is invaluable.
Mr. Minnick.
I just want to actually, Vice President Ryan kind of spoke to this, but I do, since we do have such a strong group of folks that are doing such great work now, this is really the time for us to be thinking about what are the things that we want to do differently next time. And I know that Member Rosas and I have been working with the Student Advisory Committee to look at how to better engage students in this process. And Ms. Tinker brought up a point about how we're utilizing this to guide our budget process. And as I look at the timelines for reports from LCAP and the timelines of budgets, and they line up pretty closely, which means we don't really get a lot of time to utilize the input from the LCAP to guide our process. And I'd really like to think now about how we shift that so that we're getting all this information, early enough in the process so it really does have an impact, because then it just seems like we're checking a box. And I just want to make sure that we're utilizing that we have plenty of time to adjust when we do get those recommendations. And so what I'm kind of asking of you all during this process is really be tracking the things that you'd like to see differently so we don't kind of lose that momentum, over the summer or whatever. And I would appreciate that. And then we'll keep checking in. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. All right, this is a conference to action item. Do I have a motion to move from conference to action? All right, do we have all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Very good. Do I have a motion to take action on this? I have a motion and a second. There we get a second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. 10.5, Ms. Allen, come on over.
Good evening, members of the board, President Hansen, and Superintendent Bonda. I've got some other folks joining me tonight. I've been faithfully hanging out, waiting for this, part of the crew. I'm joined tonight by Brian Myers with HMC Architects, Diana Flores, Kelsey Netterveld, Ron Hill. Guys, they've been hanging out. So a couple from nutrition, and Ron is our director of transportation.
Okay.
All of these folks have been very integral in helping us get to this point in the game. So we want to give you a little bit of an update and implore upon you to help us make a decision as we move forward. Just a little bit of, we're going to talk about the background, what our option 1 and option 2 are right now, some cost considerations for both of the options, our schedule moving forward, some next steps that we need some answers to, and then address any questions you may have. So some of the background, Measure R was, one of the major focuses of Measure R was to fund a central kitchen. We will need some additional funding sources as we move forward. Costs have risen about double since about 4 years ago when we really started to talk about this. We did an RFQ process for an architect, and we picked HMC. Very happy to do so. They're a local firm here. Well, they're a statewide firm, but have local offices. We've been doing a lot of meetings, some of which have included the City of Sacramento Planning Department. We've participated in lots of Central Kitchen Task Force meetings, co-chaired by members Ryan and Hansen. Also, the Facilities Committee meeting has discussed this an awful lot over the last year, basically. We've come up with a couple of options. Option 1 have been recommended by both the Central Kitchen Task Force and the Facilities Committee, and then in February, the board approved the resolution to swap the 2 pieces of property, which is making this all possible. So just A little bit of background. This is the Reading Avenue site as it sits today. It houses warehouse, nutrition services, the print shop and grounds and transportation, also purchasing. Library services is also in the warehouse. It is currently zoned R2A, which is residential multifamily. It's about a little over 10 acres. The San Joaquin site, which we are in the process of getting, is roughly 5.1 acres. It's a little different zoning, light industrial. It contains some outbuildings and then a 7,200 square foot storage building, a beautiful concrete, I know I don't speak normal, beautiful concrete building that would help us with our storage needs. It is adjacent to some residential, both on the south and the west side. Again, a little bit more identification of the existing site. You'll see San Joaquin Street running between those two properties. You can see where the warehouse is right now. Obviously, those are all buses that are parked there. Our grounds is kind of scattered a little bit. Nutrition services and print shop are in smaller relocatable buildings. And transportation is located in a school that was built long before the Field Act and donated by, I know Ron knows the answer to this, because Dad has something to do with it. So I've been in the district for a really long time. I'm going to turn it over to Brian, let him talk a little bit about the two options that we've come up with.
Thank you, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk about a project that is, I think, extremely exciting for the community and for the district, certainly. The opportunity to develop a facility that's going to support the students and create healthy foods for the kids is one that's certainly very exciting for us. I would like to caution us that as we look into the layout of the campuses that we've begun to explore, this is really a 35,000 foot level. We're in a very preliminary programming phase where the buildings aren't designed, the layout's not set. We're just kind of moving building blocks and pieces and parts around the campuses to give us a good idea of what it would take to make the most efficient and effective use of the existing resources on the site, as well as develop new facilities that can feed off of those existing facilities. So as we began to explore option one, we really looked at a full campus approach to both of the pieces of property, that one, where the existing warehouse is located, and secondly, the new property that was purchased. The first option really took advantage of an adjacency that's important to the food service folks, which is the existing warehouse. If we can co-locate the kitchen facility up adjacent to that existing warehouse, then there's a significant savings in the way that can operate. We also are in dire need of transportation facilities. So because of the location of the kitchen, we've actually shifted the transportation facility to the adjacent site off of San Joaquin. We do have new parking functions new parking for each of the options or each of the program elements on the site. We've began to explore some of the city required things like stormwater treatment, and also began exploring some of the opportunities that exist for creating career technical education programs, the possibility of a transportation type career tech ed program, and perhaps a culinary arts facility to support the central kitchen, and possibly even a community garden. So we've developed a series of pros. Obviously, that kitchen, the warehouse kitchen efficiency, giving that new transportation facility would be such a breath of fresh air for those in transportation. We would also be able to utilize that facility that Kathy mentioned that really is in good shape, the existing storage building that's on that new property. There's dire need for storage within the district, so that would be a huge benefit to this particular option. And then also the new facility for the career technical education, again, vehicle maintenance that we might be able to pair up with that transportation building. There is a little bit more cost in doing this. The first-time costs, obviously we're going to be developing 17 acres worth of site, or 15 acres worth of site as opposed to just the one smaller piece. We would also be looking into some sort of a phased construction. And moving that transportation adjacent to residential creates some challenges that we feel we can overcome, but it's one that we need to look into. The second option really pulls that entire central kitchen to that second site, which clearly developing just one site would lead to a lower first-time cost, would allow for a single site for construction, very easy to maintain and control. Some of the challenges with this site would be to the escalated cost for the future repairs to the transportation facility. Again, that's one thing that it's kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit. It's a need. There is an inefficiency in the way that the kitchen would be supported by the warehouse on an adjacent property, creating a lot of cross traffic between the two buildings, and moving inventory like food is not a good thing to be taken through the elements across a street, as well as people. There's a lot of inventory control issues as well, where you check in food product and bulk product into the warehouse. You'd have to check it out and go through an inventory issue. And then, of course, if we did locate the central kitchen on that facility site, we'd have to demo that resource of that storage building. So we've begun, again, very high level to look at some of the costs. The costs for each of the options has been outlined as shown on the slide. We've broken it down into construction costs. We've got a soft cost. And again, being such an early stage of construction or early stage of planning, we hold a contingency amount as well. So the total cost for option one, which includes the development of the entire campus, would be in the neighborhood of $74.2 million. The option two, which explores the single option, would be a $58.8 million. That's a single site building. And then as we evaluate those two, the way that we see it and the way that we've been looking at it and analyzing it is that second option of future costs of redoing transportation and redoing grounds and taking care of those existing facilities would at some point relate to a cost. And we've escalated that out some time and have determined that the difference between option one and option two would be between 74.2 and about just under $90 million. So then we begin to look at some of the schedule implications as well. We start taking a look at some other kitchens to give us a good indication of how others are doing things and get a good handle on how we're going to operate this. We go through a programming phase. We would initiate a series of studies, a SCUSD study. The California Department of Education would be involved due to the career technical education components. That would trigger some DTSC and other environmental evaluations that we need to look into. We would kind of run parallel and go through a design process. That would, in general, take about a year's worth of time before we submit to permitting. It goes through a permitting process, sits in a bin, and we get that reviewed ultimately, and we break ground. We would bid the project, and it would break ground sometime in May of 2019. In this particular case, the first option that we're looking at right now, this would actually be a phased construction. So we would actually begin development of the San Joaquin property first, build the transportation facilities, move transportation over, and then build the central kitchen on the site adjacent to the warehouse. And that would occur sometime, we would hope to be complete sometime before the school year of 2021.
So I've been kind of saying that right now we're a little bit dead in the water until we kind of make a decision and take some next steps to move forward. Don't want to ask our architects to design something until we know what site we're going to be designing on. Obviously, we have some funding issues that we do need to address. But again, I think we kind of have to make that initial early decision on which one we're going to go with before we can start tackling that funding difference. CEQA, CDE, and DTSC, again, will all take an awful lot of time. And once we have the site, we'll be able to push forward on those. Don't want to do the studies on the wrong site. We'll continue the Central Kitchen Task Force meetings and obviously reporting back to the Facilities Committee as well. So, we are asking for this to be moved from conference to action. Obviously, if we can't do that tonight, we'll want to try and do it as soon as we possibly can so we don't slow this thing up. This would certainly not be the last time the board would have the option to say, wait a second, we think we just can't do this. We have our challenges in front of us. We do need to identify some gap funding. We've had some preliminary conversations about that, but really need to make kind of that initial decision to move forward so that we can at least start that process and not be spinning our wheels on wondering which site we're going to be on. So with that,
Do we have any public comment?
We have one public comment from Mr. Ian Arnold.
Mr. Arnold.
Evening again. Okay, so if we look at the two options, option two obviously is cheaper and it looks like it's faster. And I think if you look at it simply as what's cheapest and fastest, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. If we do that in our own lives, let's look at what's best. For those folks who have not visited the transportation where it currently is situated, when you walk in, you start to get a little bit seasick because you're walking up and down the hills that are on the floor. Some of the windows open, some of the windows don't open, doors stick when it rains. We recently had a fire out there, so there's a portion of it that's not usable. It simply doesn't work. That building we know has to be torn down. We've got staff out there every day They're trying to conduct training in a building that's hard to heat and hard to keep cool. And for bus drivers, you know, they've got these long periods of hours where they're sort of in between shifts that are sitting around there. If and when we have a situation where a parent is not home to receive a child, the bus, no matter how close to the transportation yard it is, has to turn around and go back to the school site, because it's illegal for us to bring children into that site because of the lead paint and the asbestos. We need to tear that thing down. We really do. And so to go with option number one, we spend a little bit more money early and we take a little bit more time, and hopefully we've got something that lasts for 50 years as opposed to something that's good for 6 months. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Member Ryan.
Thank you. So this is obviously the culmination of a long project and hundreds of hours of conversation. And thank you to President Hansen for his effort, and also the rest of our board who's been putting time and energy into ensuring that this is done right. I just want to share in full disclosure, when these options came before the Facilities Committee, much as the preliminary conversations on the Central Kitchen Task Force, there was some real sticker shock. I don't think there's any way around it, right? We were anticipating a $40 million project, and to go from $40 million to $74.2 million or $58.8 million, you know, is quite a jump. And so, Kathy, I would like it if you can just do a very succinct summary of why the cost escalation. And then I also would love you to walk us through how you were able to be creative about utilizing the bond dollars that were allocated for this project, as well as some other dollars that you would be moving to be able to see this vision into fruition.
Sure. So when we first started talking about the kitchen, my number was about 30 or 32 million, but that was close to 4 years ago. So really the quick, easy answer is costs have more than doubled. There's an awful lot of money on the street. There's a lot of competition for contractors. Bids are going up. It's been reflected in everything we've seen. So we've built, I think, a 15% cost escalation into this budget through what we call midpoint of construction, and I'm being told by my peers statewide that I'm too low. So I'm a little worried about it, but we do have a nice contingency in both of the options. These are very conservative numbers. We certainly don't ever want to be under. So, likely, unless there's just some drastic change or another hurricane, takes all the steel in China again, we're pretty comfortable with this, and then we'll refine these as we pick an option to move forward. What we've talked about a little bit in a couple of the meetings, and I think the reason why we all got hung up on the $40 million numbers, because that is what's left in Measure R, is 40.9. So we just kept seeing that 40 number, thinking that, well, that's what we're going to build the kitchen for. And as we've seen, obviously, even with option 2, we can't quite do that. Some of the more creative things we've talked about doing is some recoding of some prior R expenditures into Q. Q and R do have specific and real differences between the two, but there's an awful lot of overlap between the two. So some of the projects that we coded out of R could have also been coded out of Q. So that would then free up additional dollars in R. R is going to be the only source that we're going to be able to do this with. So that would be some. Again, it would be at the cost of Q, but it would not be at the cost of any project that's already on the books. So this is money that is not yet allocated to any particular project. We've also talked about, about being able to make up the delta between option 1 and option 2 when it was more like $11 million. We have about $6 million, a little bit over $6 million in the nutrition services budgets that's strictly allocated for equipment purchases. So it has to be spent on exactly this type of project. So we would put $6 million into it. The career tech components for both the culinary and possibly the transportation one are up to $3 million a piece. We feel pretty darn confident that we have an awfully good chance. It is a competitive grant to get the $3 million for the culinary. Not quite as confident yet about the transportation side of things, but we'll go after every penny that we can. We're searching for community partners right now to make sure that our applications are really strong, and that's what they're weighted on. So I think we'll have a pretty good shot at least the $3 million. Other parts of it might be looking at how we pay down debt for the district. We've been using a couple of pots of money to pay down debt. We could maybe suspend those pots for a couple of years And we really are looking at a kind of a cash flow issue. We'd like the opportunity to work with our financial advisors, who you're going to hear from next, and Gerardo and his office in terms of what that cash flow would look like and when we expect money to come in on like our Community Facilities District number 2, which is the pot of money that we currently use to pay down debt, but are also using to fund issues that arise at some of our admin sites. So if the roof starts to leak here and we need a new HVAC, we don't pull that out of Q or R, we actually pull that out of our CFD number 2. So hoping that we can kind of lump all of those together and tie them up in a nice package, get the numbers a little bit closer to, on the lower side of that instead of going up, and then bring it back to the board with obviously some pretty concrete numbers. I know there's been some concern about the phased construction that Brian mentioned. They'll see transportation going first and then, oh, well, whoops, we ran out of money. We obviously want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we want to lock those funds in now so that people aren't worried about this kitchen never getting built.
Thank you, Kathy. So my last comment on that is just, the feedback we've had from some of the other Central Kitchen Task Force members, particularly those that are representing community groups like the Food Policy Action Network, is that they see the value of option 1. Clearly, it's the more comprehensive approach, and I agree with Ian Arnold's comments. And in the long term is actually the more fiscally prudent approach as well, versus kind of option 2, which is a bit of a Band-Aid. But the concern is, once again, that if we have this tiered project where we begin with transportation, that the central kitchen not be sacrificed to these other, transportation needs and buildings like the warehouse going up. So I just want to underscore the importance of that and say that, I support option 1. I think our facilities committee, after rich conversation, came to that conclusion, although it still is very difficult to recognize the reality that in order to get a central kitchen that will serve the students of the district for decades to come, we are going to be paying a premium price.
These costs were generated by an outside cost estimating firm. So it runs through Brian's office. Very typical. We do this on any kind of large project like this. They take a look at it. They analyze the industry for what's happening currently, and then again project out to when we think we're going to be starting construction. So these are not just numbers that I've come up with and thrown some dollar amounts at. These were done by an outside cost estimator, and we'll continue to utilize their services through the whole thing.
Member Pritchett.
Thank you. Okay, I have a few questions. First off, in regard to the land, I know in Facilities Committee we talked about there needed to be testing of the land, and it was going to take us, I think it was 30 days for it to come back. Has that come back now?
We're like smack in the middle of it. I'd say we're probably day 16 or something. So
okay.
Yeah, we're close.
So we should have it within a month or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me on the schedule of just why it seems, going out to 2021, that seems like quite a long time for construction. Can you just give us a brief description of why it takes so long?
Sure. So this particular project schedule, where we look at phase construction, will really require that we build the transportation in its entirety first. We don't have the luxury of, having a temporary location to house the transportation facilities. Maybe we do. We can look at that. But there's, again, at this point, in this stage of the game, we looked at what would we have to do first in order to allow the building to occur. So facilities going through a design process and building the transportation facility on the adjacent site first would have to be completed. And once that's done, then we break ground on the new property. So that adds some time. Also breaking it up into 2 separate projects, there's a little bit of time and overlap that I think we can be aggressive and approach this in an aggressive way that I think can trim some of that. We were trying to just take a good wholesome look at what we thought it would take to go through the entire process. And it really does, we want to engage stakeholders. We want to talk to the people who are going to be using the facilities to make sure that we're giving them what we want. Go through an aggressive design process, go through a permitting process that in this case we feel with the career technical education component would be through the California, the Division of the State Architect. We know them, we know how they operate. We feel like that's a manageable entity that we can work with, and submitting it to them, we know we can come up with a very firm time. But you'll notice that process of review is a significant one. So we've got to make sure that we take advantage of the sites and work as hard as we can to beat this schedule. I think this is conservative, but it was what we felt it would take in a conservative environment.
Would it help having a temporary location for the bus yard or for the facilities department to move over? And do we have a location that we could put up for that?
I think that's something that we should definitely talk about. There are some buildings there. Could they be used for offices? Possibly. The ground is DG and dirt, and wouldn't be actually too far off from what we have right now at transportation. So come to think of it, that might not be a big change. It is doable. I think we'd want to look at that not only as a cost savings, but also to save some time as well. One of the other long time things in here, and it's not really kind of laid out, as soon as we go for that CTE grant at the California Department of Ed, that does push us into a whole nother level of testing and approvals and state agencies, all those letters you see up there. That's a year. I mean, we'll be doing the design process, again, the schematic design and design docs at the same time, but that's a year-long process. But it's worth it, at least at this point, to get somewhere between $3 and $6 million, I think.
Thank you for that explanation. Back to the whole temporary, if we did give a location, how much time do you think that would shave off the process?
6 months, perhaps.
Really? Okay. That's not much.
You wanted like 2 years.
I wanted like a year and a half, 2 years.
No.
My God, never mind. Okay. I don't really have any other questions. I guess, just one, recommendation on my part, to say it nicely, as Member Ryan said, of it being sticker shock in the facilities committee. I was just amazed by how much the prices have gone up over the last, because this, we planned on doing this 4 years ago, and the prices have gone up dramatically in the 4 years. So I would say just moving forward, and as we start building, that we're not just pouring money into things to make it look nice and pretty. We're doing things efficiently, and we're doing it the best we can for the least amount of money that we can.
A significant portion of costs, if I might add, is the actual site development on both sites. Those of you who have been out there and walked transportation understand, we have more dirt than we do pavement. So we're into phase 2 violations now with all of our stormwater folks. So I'm not quite sure what happens when we get to phase 3. I don't really want to know. Never been there before. So the site work on both of those sites is fairly significant. But I mean, it would fix it once and for all. We'd have a stormwater management practice in place. Wouldn't have to touch it again, for a really long time. So it would be fixing everything once. But yeah, totally share your concerns.
Okay,
Member Cochran?
Thank you, President Hansen. I want to preface my comments and a few questions with that I am an advocate and supporter of the Central Kitchen. And but I have to tell you, if you would be kind enough to put a slide with option 1 and option 2 cost comparison back up. Thank you. I'm actually almost sick to my stomach. And all of us sat here earlier, and we have many, many agendas and many requests from this district enumerated by the teachers. And you're asking to go from 40 million up to 74 million, and that's just what's on paper today. And I'm getting a little jittery about this. And I really want to know, some of the creative funding that you mentioned, something that stood out to me was using the way that we pay our debt down. And I think that that's, part of the contention about where our money goes in general. And to do creative funding to make Central Kitchen happen by taking money from there, from that exercise, is what you're denying the teachers and the other voices that are clamoring for the same pot of money. So I'm not sure how we're justifying this for the Central Kitchen. And I'm also, I don't know, maybe can you comment on that? Or is that, I understand the thinking and being creative, and I laud it. But it's also opposite of what we've told our other partners as far as how we cannot touch that money.
How about let me make just a quick comment on that, because I think that's an excellent question. And it was confusing to me before I got onto the school board, but we have 2 different sources of funding. So we have one source that's general fund money, that's tax money that's coming into our district that we can use for operational costs and we can use for teacher salaries and those kind of things. We have an entirely separate pot of money that's construction money that comes from an entirely different place. That money in the bonds, and we're about to address that in our next item. So construction money can't be used for operations, can't be used for salary. It's an assessment that's made on property taxes and is paid back through our property taxes. It can only be used for that. So these dollar amounts don't reflect in any way of an impact on the general fund. So there's no mixture of.
I understand that, except the question is about tapping into money creatively to make up to bridge the difference. And one of the things that was mentioned was digging into what we're going to use to pay down our debt. But I do understand that, President Hansen.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So what about the creativeness that's going on here?
So currently, we a couple of boards ago at least, the board did adopt, I don't know if it was a resolution or what kind of format it was, to pay down debt out of two things first. So CFD number 2, and which is Community Facilities District number 2, which is the tax. It's kind of like a general obligation bond. It's just not voted on by voters. It's a little bit different. And then developer fees. So if there's sufficient money in CFD2 and developer fees on an annual basis, and Gerardo, correct me if I'm wrong, then we pay down debt, and whatever's left over is what we do fix things at admin sites that are broken. In the past, when we haven't been as flush with developer fees, and developer fees are a dollar amount that a builder or a developer or you would, when you pull your permit to build your house, you pay a dollar amount per square foot. Those come to the district to mitigate the impact of the kids that are allegedly coming from that development. We are what's called a single high school attendance area, so those fees can be used throughout the entire district. And feeding kids would be a purpose for which those fees could be used for. So one thing that could be possible is for a limited period of time perhaps is to not use CFD1 and developer fees, or maybe all of both of those, to pay down debt for a couple of years until we can make this difference back up, which would potentially impact the general fund if we don't collect enough or the same amount of developer fees that we've been collecting recently. I mean, we've been on a pretty good roll for the last couple of years, and it won't last forever, but then neither will the construction program. So those are two of the things that we've been talking about. There's also something else, and I might put Jeff Small on the spot here, called new market tax credits that we're exploring. It's not a new thing, but it would be a new thing for the district to pursue. It could potentially fund, as I remember, about 20% of the hard construction cost of the kitchen. So we're looking at that. I mean, again, I'm not going to throw that up on the board as an obvious revenue source, but if it does come through for us, which we would know in roughly a year, then that would be a big boon. 20% of the cost of the hard construction cost would be a nice chunk of change. So that's the creativity we're talking about. And again, we don't need this all at once, so it is a cash flow issue, and it's not like we'd be taking a massive chunk of money from one particular pot right away. Again, after this, you'll hear a little discussion about the bond sales that we're doing coming up, and we probably don't need to sell all the 40.9 in R right now because there are some time limits on when we have to spend that. So I think we can do it. We just need, before I jump headlong and the budget committee and the facilities committee kind of keeps going on a path, we really need to narrow that path down. And at the end of a few months, if it just doesn't look like we're going to be able to pull this off, then we back off and we go with option 2, or something else might come up that's creative. So.
But I understand it and I appreciate this, but I don't like the way this is going. The talk amongst board members and the conversation about funding is we are not going to get more money. The permits might not be pulled as they are being pulled now. We have to plan for a dismal future. So I'm very nervous about this. And I also, I understand the explanation with the transportation, and I agree that everything needs to be done to improve the transportation side of this, but also the request from the citizens was specifically central kitchen. They weren't talking about the transportation side of this. Probably didn't occur to them that they'd be married at some point in the future, but they were very specific. And this is kind of ballooning into a larger project than I think that people initially envisioned when they were thinking about central kitchen. And I'm just saying my piece. It's ballooning. It's going high. You're creative. Funding probably is out there, but I am very uncomfortable with our current temperament, I should say, and worries about our financial future to do this. And I also know that the construction costs and the bond costs, those are monies that can go to schools that don't have fields and don't have stadiums and need repairs. And I was all for the balance of having the central kitchen because the cost was not going to eat and tear that away from very needy high schools like Hiram Johnson. So I'm really nervous, and I'm looking forward to explanations, but I will vote no if this gets out of control. Thank you.
I'm excited about the project. One, we've never priced the central kitchen, so the $40 million number that somehow got stuck in our conscience was never a real number because we'd never had actually put a dollar amount on what the cost of that project was going to be. So just to be clear, since I was there on day one of when we started talking about this, that just happened to be how much was left in Measure R, and that was kind of just the ballpark of what we thought would be there. And after I think members of the board and got to see what was happening with the transportation facilities, that was pretty alarming to me. Someone who's worked within infrastructure and construction for a long time in my professional life, it's clear you have to take care of major projects to be able to go into the future, and it's clear that that project's already far outlived its life. And the fact that we're asking our employees to work in the conditions they do outdoors, all year round, we're lucky we don't have a whole batch of grievances on that every single week. So I appreciate all their hard work there. I think the opportunity to do both of these is kind of a once in a district's lifetime opportunity. It might not come around for decades and decades and decades. Yeah, it's a chunk of money, but it's less than this building cost. It's about the cost of a high school. So half the cost of a high school. So really, if for those of us who don't, work with numbers every day, that's not a lot of money, to be honest. It is a lot of money, but it's not in the kinds of things that we're talking about. So I'm for option one. Do we have any public comment? Did we already did public comment? Well, I'm losing track. Yeah, we're done. So I would look for a motion on option one. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, so one abstention, the remainder in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll keep bringing it back for updates.
We'll look forward to hearing more about it as it progresses. Okay, Mr. Castillo. For your very brief presentation.
Yeah, very brief. The proposed policy conforms to the new statutory requirements and reflects generally accepted practices and existing requirements that apply to debt issuance. That's the summary of our next board policy.
Great. So it's my understanding we're just conforming our board policy to new state law. So I would look for a public comment on that.
On nothing on 10.6.
Yeah, 10.6. Any board comment, questions? I'd look for a motion to move to this from.
So this is the first reading.
Yeah.
So this is the first reading. So
I'll just come back at another thing. Okay. Thank you. We'll look forward to learning more and more about that next.
So next item. Good
10.7.
evening. Okay. Thank you. Good evening again, President Hanson, Superintendent Banda, and members of the board. We are recommending your approval of Resolution 2931 to sell general obligation bonds for measures Q and R for an amount not to exceed $125.9 million. Mr. Jesmal will do the rest of the presentation. And also we ask is our bank counsel, John Palmer from OREC. He will be available to answer questions. In addition, our underwriters from Stifel are in the audience and available if needed.
Very good.
Thank you very much, President Hanson, members of the board, Superintendent Banda, Jeff Small, Capital PFG, the district's independent municipal advisor. I know you've had a very long night, so try to get to the most critical points of the presentation. I think in a nutshell, one thing can be said, the district has done a great job with the voter-approved Measure Q and Measure R. We're almost halfway through both measures. So tonight, what I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is the upcoming bond sale for Measure Q and Measure R. There's a resolution that's contained in your board packet. It authorizes up to $85 million of Measure Q money, which is essentially core academic renovation, and up to $40.9 million of Measure R for the central kitchen. As Ms. Allen alluded to earlier, there is still some issues relative to the actual expenditure of funds and how those funds will be needed. Based on the slide I saw earlier, it would appear that perhaps the full $40 million is probably not necessary if you're not going to do construction to 2019. So both the business department, Gerardo, and Amari, and Kathy and her team, we're going to meet on Tuesday, and we're going to figure out the nuts and bolts, and we're going to look at some of the funding issues that were raised this evening, and also take into consideration Member Cochran's concern regarding the funding gap. This slide, number 4, this is the money that you're getting and how it's going to be used. And I'd just like to take a moment and just walk you through it. There's a column for Measure Q and Measure R, as you can see. I've just addressed the total, $122 million. There's something called a bond premium. We've talked about this before. Essentially, that's money an investor would pay to the district in order to bring down the interest rate on the bond sale. So we're expecting a $7.5 million premium. That premium directly relates to market forces and also the amount of money that is needed to pay the underwriter compensation. Whatever is left is deposited in a fund to reduce taxes paid by taxpayers. And you see there's a sum of $7.2 million under uses of funds for the debt service fund. And essentially that's money just to help out the taxpayers. You'll see that there's a project fund we're expecting, assuming you issued the full 40.9 million of Measure R, there'd be about $121 million, and probably more than that. I'll touch on that in a minute. Cost of issuance are about $372,000. Those are legal fees, financial fees, substantial rating fees. Anytime you get into talking about $125 million issues, you're going to have some significant costs. There's a specific breakdown of what those costs are in your resolution under Exhibit A. Finally, you have an underwriter's discount. This is a sum that is paid to the underwriter or salespeople who sell these bonds, whose job it is to get the lowest possible price, the lowest possible interest rate on the bonds, and that estimate is $427,000. I think very significantly, we've included an estimate for bond insurance. It's something that the district has needed in the past in order to essentially bring down interest rates to as low as we possibly can. Because the district has done an exceptional job over the last few years, the market may not require the district to incur that expenditures. And we are currently in a very confidential process in terms of getting a credit rating. We do expect that tomorrow, but assuming that that meets management's expectations as to what we're expecting from that process, it is very likely that that would be a significant cost savings of $396,000 that could go back into the project fund for projects. So we're hoping that that goes well. We're also looking at obtaining a Fitch AAA credit rating, and that would be on the bonds, making the bond insurance not necessary. Finally, you see on slide 5, what this is saying is our practice has been to be very conservative. One of the key objectives is to maintain that $54 tax rate promise that's made to investors. And what we do is we size the bonds and the debt service to hit that $54 every 2 years. Now, we're going to plan on coming back for another issuance in 2019. Depending on how our conversation goes tomorrow, that 2019 date must be adjusted. But we do want to hit that $54 in the area, in that open area. That's when future debt service would be dropped in, bringing up future debt service back to that $54 per 100,000. It's been another key objective that the district has had is to save the taxpayers money by front-loading debt service in order to keep the tax rate at $54. And what you see here is after the 2017 bonds are issued, there will have been about $300 million worth of bonds issued, and the district will have been able to pay back 23% of that by 2019. So very quick payback. We're very proud of that because it does save taxpayers money. These are just some metrics. I won't go through all of them here, but just, we're looking at about a 4% interest rate. Again, if things go well with the credit rating agency, that cost can come down, but it's also dependent on market conditions. We're looking at a total repayment ratio of about $1.57 for every dollar borrowed, and that is for a 25-year loan, and the district has been doing 25-year loans. This is a very important slide here because this is one of the points that we need feedback from the board. We would like to consider extending that 25-year term to 30 years. Why would we want to do that? Well, it would increase the likelihood of issuing the remaining Measure Q authorization by 2019. Now, what that would do is it would be able to exhaust that bond authorization earlier and complete your projects earlier. And as you just heard, the cost of construction has had very high escalation rates. So we think that there's a lot of value to accelerating to the extent that it's within the district's ability to spend the money within, with a 2 to 3 year period. But the idea would be going from a 25-year maturity to a 30-year maturity. We would still need to have some significant growth in assessed value to be able to issue all of the district's remaining authorization by 2019. That amount would be, on average, 6% a year for the next 2 years. Doesn't affect anything we're doing today. It's the only thing that we're doing today is talking about going from a 25-year term to a 30-year term. We just think that even though there's going to be an additional cost of that, and we're quantifying that on this slide as $1.76 per every dollar borrowed, about 20 cents more, it does give the district an option of being able to issue those bonds earlier. Now, if we stick with the 25-year term, then there's going to be a bond issuance in 2019, and hopefully in 2021, the bond authorization can be exhausted. It's not guaranteed. District would actually need to have 8% growth rate for that, to stick with that 25 years and be able to issue all the bonds. Just to put it in perspective, over the long haul, the district's annual average assessed value growth has been about 5%. This past year, it's been just over 6%. And boy, we all know that there's a lot of growth and development happening in the downtown Sacramento, in the district's boundaries, and we're optimistic, yet try to be very conservative with the growth rate projections. And the growth rate projections have been and are 3% growth next year and 2% the year after. We're not changing that. All we're trying to do is say that if you go out to 30 years from 25 years and you do get that growth, then there is an opportunity to issue all the bonds by 2019. Said a lot there. We're coming back to you for an action item on April 6th. We're looking at a bond sale on April 19th. Knock on wood, even though I think we're in a rising interest rate environment, and the underwriting team can talk about interest rates, but we are looking to sort of get ahead of the curve here. It's a lot of bonds that were passed by K-12 school districts this year. I think we're all familiar with that, and we're looking on having money in the bank for facilities by May 10th. And with that, I would just like to say that this slide relates to the resolution, the legal documents included in that resolution. Happy to answer any questions about them. John Palmer from Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe, the drafter of those wonderful documents, is here, and he can assist with any questions related to those documents. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Do we have any public comment?
Grace Trujillo.
Come on down.
Good evening, members of the board and Jose Banda. I think bonds is another area I think that people need to know more about. I know one of the biggest things that you see in the newspaper and you see and you talk and you hear the talks is the fact that bonds have to be placed on the books now. So when you go and apply for more, it's going to be on there. You're going to have the bond amounts. And some entities, like the cities, what they've done is they use the bond to pay their debt or their unfunded liabilities. And this has created a huge, huge problem. I think I agree, we need money to fix and repair the schools, don't get me wrong, because otherwise our schools are falling apart. And I'm there with them, of getting the money. But what's happening, it's year after year. So just like we have the unfunded liabilities for the retirements and also the health insurance, now we're doing with the bonds. And these things are things that we need to address and be aware about. I know we're all familiar with them. And I think you're seeing more articles. I think there's another article in the Sacramento Bee about Los Angeles about them reducing the pensions. This is the second one that's happening. I think it's going to be like a little snowball effect. It's just a matter of time. But I'm glad as a board, you're working together and figuring and solving those problems right now and these issues that it's very hard for all of us to talk about and also that have not been addressed in the past. I think with these bonds, I think one of the things is a debt service. It varies. We're getting money now, but how much money are we paying from past bonds? How many millions of dollars are accumulating? Those are the things that also need to be part of this presentation, so that way we could see. So when we have it as a school saying, okay, these are unfunded liabilities for retirement. These are unfunded liabilities for healthcare. These are unfunded liabilities for the service debt ratio. Let's figure out efficiencies. I think, as I mentioned before, I know I dwell about special ed, about segregation, but what I'm saying is savings, finding ways how we could save in those different categories so we can make it more efficient. It's just like a family budget and household. How are we going to resolve some of these issues? So thank you.
Okay, any questions or comments? Or I'm sorry, we have Mr. Banda.
Thank you. Jeff, on page 9 of your PowerPoint, where you have a schedule of how this is going to roll out, on April 19th, will you do the bond sale? I've always wondered, is that kind of a hit and miss of whether you're going to be able to get the best interest, best return on the sales? Or is the market move around that much, or just
and I'll call up the Stiefel team. And why don't I do that? Let me call the Stiefel team up because they will actually be selling bonds on the district's behalf. Do you like?
Good evening. I'm Bruce Kearns from Stiefel. With respect to selling the bonds, Superintendent Banda, their markets do move. They change every day in one direction or another. The selection of April 19th is simply for the scheduling purpose, but doesn't mean that that's the day that we're actually going to sell bonds. Because what we'd like to do is to take the temperature of the bond market over the week prior and make decisions at the last minute when to sell the bonds. So we have the flexibility of avoiding economic effects that might cause interest rates to rise or speed up the financing if we can see that as a favorable time. Also, there are different groups of bonds being sold by different public agencies around the state and around the country, and we keep an eye on those bonds too to make sure that we're not selling the Sacramento City Unified School District's bonds at a time when there would be other bonds much like theirs, so that we'll try to make sure that the Sac City Unified School District bonds stand out among the group of bond issues being sold on a particular day, and as a consequence, generate more interest from investors, which will translate to lower interest rates.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce.
Any other questions or comments? This is an information item. We will be hearing it as an agenda item for a motion in 2 weeks. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we are receiving information received. If future board meetings noticed. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Member Rosas, you second.
I move to adjourn. I second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you all very much.